Unfortunately, last year we didn't make it to Worlds, but this time around we're ready to go through group stages.
这一技能好了吗？先打一个印记，这边杜朗忽的过去一个漫天飞羽，到不到，超不到两个人，是一丝血的小炮往左右边跳掉了 ，Regulus。
そうですね。やっぱり改めて思ったのは、やっぱどのチームもすごく強いなっていうのが今日思いましたね。
Ngày hôm qua thua 2 trận, không phải là thất bại hoàn toàn, cho nên ngày hôm nay bọn em sẽ cố gắng hết sức để đánh bại họ.
再走出来找到一个速度的距离，但是满德瑞亚还在继续在一个 Q 技能夹着躲过以后，正面看到了新的拉菲，闪现过去一个倒钩上来。
Y que aunque seamos una región emergente, tenemos el nivel para estar acá.
希望我们接下来可以复仇 FP， 拿下小组第一。
球清一下，5杀 Pentakill 拿下这一波。
Dün takım olarak güzel bir 5'te 5 yaptık ama bu ilk 5'te 5'imiz değil, devamı da gelecek.
Welcome back to the final day of the Worlds play-in stage. Today we find out which teams from Group C and D advance to the next stage of Worlds and which two teams will end their Worlds run here. You can see the stadium heating up, getting ready. A lot of logos, only a couple of those teams going to make it through, and of course the fans excited to be there. And Rampage getting ready for their final, or what could be their final day.
Yeah, don't get ahead of yourself. They still have a chance to fight back.
Of course, coming in this, hello everyone, I'm Daniel Dracos, and joining me are the newest additions to my premier PUBG squad. Of course, we have Mark Zimmerman, he feeds. And on the other side, we have the BDD of PUBG, Zach Rusty Pie. Thank you, Rusty, for joining us to carry yet another portion of my life.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here, of course. KDA King himself of PUBG. There's so much wrong with that intro. There's almost no factual statements in that intro.
Luckily, it's not about your self-confidence, Mark Z. Luckily, today is about the last 4 teams promoting to the play-in elimination stage. And if we pull up the standings, we can see that Fnatic and Chaos Latin Gamers are poised to move on from Group C, with 1907 Fenerbahce and Hong Kong Attitude aiming to do the same in Group D. But Young Generation and Rampage can still shake the standings with our first games of the day. It's going to start with that rematch between Hong Kong Attitude and Rampage, followed by Young Generation hoping to get revenge against Chaos Latin Gamers, with their groups completing their second round robin and all necessary tiebreakers throughout the day. After the seeds from each groups are locked in, stick around after the show for the presentation of the elimination stage draw live from Wuhan. Now, I think one of the big standouts, one of the big surprises in Group A and B, Lion Gaming came up big, but here if we look at Group D, Fenerbahce came out swinging on the first day of play.
Yeah, they actually upset HKH. It's the first time a #1 seed has lost here in the playing stage. So that in and of itself is a huge story, and also the way that they did it. They were down a little bit early game. They turned it on the team fighting stage. They were able to seal away objectives. Everything started clicking.
Yeah, show they can play slow League of Legends and still make it work successfully through the team fights. But the big place we have to look at is Crash. Regarding them in particular, he played outstandingly. He was aggressive. Communication issues may not seem to be a thing because Frozen can do the brunt of that, but it worked out.
Yeah, and when you're coming in with an emergency substitute and everything feels like it could just go wrong when you add a new player to the mix, and that player comes in and steals you 2 Barons back to back to keep you in a game, feels like a pretty, out of anything that could have happened with an emergency substitute, feels like Fenerbahce definitely won out.
Yeah, it feels like if you get on the same way that you kind of play, even close to it before the substitution, it's a great thing. And the fact that he's come in, he's done well in terms of also early game, just pressuring where he needs to, sometimes helping out that bot lane that tends to lose a little bit, but making sure it never gets blown wide open.
Yeah, definitely best case scenario for Fenerbahce as far as they're concerned. Maybe they wanted move here, but it's not the case, and they'll be happy nonetheless.
And I feel like just across the board, we saw pretty solid performances from this team. Thaldron coming in clutch, Frozen in the mid lane. Of course, the big step up was the 80 carry on the bottom side of the map.
I think that's the big thing for a lot of people because he was probably the most criticized member of this team coming into the tournament. And whilst you can see that those were somewhat valid and that he struggles in the laning phase, once he's out of it, he is doing way better than expected.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's been doing surprisingly well in the team fights, gets the pentakill 3v5 without the Koreans even there in the roster, so perhaps they are the secret strength after all. But it's not just him, of course. I look towards the mid lane. I'd say that Noel is someone that stood out between games. Sorry, not Noel. You know what? I give up.
Frozen?
Frozen. Yeah, Frozen, who's someone that surprisingly didn't step up. That's where I wanted to go with this. The reason that I bring him up is because he's spending so much time communicating with Crash that it all actually makes them come together nicely as a team around that 80 carry.
And if we look at it on the opposite side, we look at, hey, these guys are starting to to upset the top of their group. One team very close to being upset was Fnatic. Very long, very grueling game, and felt like things just were not going well for them at the start of that.
It wasn't going well, but the one thing that did go well for Fnatic was the bottom lane consistently performing incredibly. Reckless did his absolute best, but so did Jessus, even getting the Rakan and having these crazy engages, crazy performances. I've been super impressed with those two.
Right, but like Dracos was saying, not all sunshine and roses. They did have a big problem in the mid lane. The fact that Caps felt like in game 2 he went for a little bit of a stylish pick, going for the LeBlanc. I know it's a good champion, but it wasn't necessary in that comp. Ends up backfiring horribly as Null is able to take him to town for most of that game.
And now the question remains, what form of Fnatic are we going to see today? Because we look at Young Generation on the opposite side, Null stepping up huge. You mentioned him earlier. He did not have a great first game. He did not connect in a lot of the mechanical plays, but he looked like a completely different player coming into his second match against Fnatic.
I think that's the big thing is you have to think about maybe nerves are a little bit of a play in them for, because it was the first game of the day and he just missed a ton of stuff on Syndra. Looked really bad, W's off, stuns off, and then the second day he comes in and smashes one of the best mid laners in Europe. So you have to give him a little bit of credit there and say that hopefully that part of the performance continues.
It's fair to say he found himself a bit more. So in tournaments like this, best of ones, all you have to do is show up in that one game and potentially get the victory. And as unfortunate it is for them that they don't get it, we still saw so many good things from them coming into today. They might be able to upset if that improvement continues.
And we had talked a lot yesterday about how top lane was a weakness, and we do have an update. Nocti is now subbing in, the other top laner the Young Generation has, and I know this makes you very happy, Mark Z. You're a big Nocti fan.
I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a huge Nocti fan. I just, seeing what we saw in the finals as well as what we saw out of Ren in the first 2 games, he was clearly the member of the team that was struggling the most, and Nocti can play those tanks, plays that more team-centric style, and it allows them to focus more on letting Null step up and continue to carry.
It feels like maybe they just have to bring him in to reverse sweep with Nocti. There's no way of putting him in first.
How they got in
technically,
here,
it's going to be 2 losses. They win the tiebreaker, that's 3 in a row.
Hey, they could do it. Could turn it around, and I think this is the issue for Ren, right? We came in, he said, hey, this is the guy that likes to split push, this is the guy that likes to keep the ball rolling, but ultimately, you come onto a stage, you're playing against different players with different styles. Maybe what you're doing in your own region just does not work out when it comes into a player who's normally used to dominating these 1v1s.
I think that's definitely the case, because you saw that Renekton game. He had a small advantage, but wanted to push it further versus Monterrey, and he just couldn't do it. The Cho'Gath was just too much for him to handle, and that's probably a matchup he's comfortable in his own region, didn't execute it here.
Yeah, for me, it's the carry players that really do struggle coming to the international stage against someone else that plays carries or is playing tanks to a higher level above those expectations. That's where the regional problems can come into play.
And it just feels like tanks, unlike those high-pressure 1-3-1 kind of split pushers, are always just going to have a relevance. And so even if your player maybe not as strong, they can sit back, they can take more of a backseat role, whereas if you're used to this guy carrying games, it does tend to throw a wrench in the works when you are relying on him normally.
Yeah, and he hard committed into the carry role when he was playing the Renekton. It wasn't build one carry item, team fight with the rest of the team. He went Blade of the Ruined King. He fully committed himself to that split push, and it didn't work out in the end, and perhaps that's why Nocti is showing up.
And so are we thinking that this is probably going to be a positive change for the team, or is this still kind of a big question mark on the side of Young Generation?
I think it's a little bit of a question mark just because we already saw 2 very different games between the team. Ren, like we said, was the one consistent member, slightly underperforming. So if you're going to go with that Gragas game plan that they seem to play better with, and Nocti is the tank player, then it seems like the intelligent thing to do is sub him in.
Well, we're going to see how it unfolds, but if you're looking for a way to chip into the world's hype, look no further than the newest additions of the Championship line. And as a reminder, 25% of the proceeds from Championship Ash and the Ward Skin purchases are going to be added to that world's prize pool. An additional 25% is also going to be donated to charity. You can also unlock the Championship Ash Chroma through the World's Mission, which is available through all of Worlds. Personally, I love the Chroma. I think it's fire. We got to see it already. But that's enough from us. We're going to send it over to the casters to get you in the first game of the day. So Pyra and Frosk, take it away.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm Devin Pirate Tankus Young, and of course, it's a 2014 LPL reunion because I'm joined by my BFF, Indiana Frusker in Black.
Yeah, I still can't get away from this guy. I traveled over 9,000 miles, and yet here I am again.
Yep, friendship is magic. Now, team banners are lifted, and the fans are ready for our first game of the day. It is Hong Kong Attitude versus Rampage. So let's kick things off by taking a look at our starting lineups. On the red side for this game, representing the LOL Japan League, it is Rampage. In the top lane, we've got Evie. In the jungle, Tussle. Mid laner, Ramune. Bot lane, Yutori Moyashi. Support Dara. And their coach, 3-4.
And of course, on the blue side, it is going to be Hong Kong Attitude, led by Coach Tabe. In the top lane, it's going to be Riris. In the jungle, it's God Kwai. Mid lane is Mission. Unified in bot and Kai Wing in support.
Yep, I mentioned Tabe, the coach. Now, for Hong Kong Attitude, they really got to take care of business here if they want to contest for that top spot. getting upset, not a good way to start if you want to go far at Worlds.
And the thing is, it's about where they need to tighten up, identifying specifically where the weaknesses were. Now, they dominate a lot of the lane phase. They are known as a very lane-dominant team. They say so themselves in the LMS. They're very respected for that. But some of these macro decisions, some of these setups around big objectives, it was the 2 big Baron steals. You know, it didn't have to be a 50-50 Baron against 1907 Fenerbahce. They could have waited for the top creeps to push in on the inhib that they had broken earlier, taken a much smarter play and a much cleaner performance. So HKA, for me, it's about total dominance. They talked about revenge here. No, it goes way past that. They need to prove that they are actually a top 16 team because those are their goals. It's not just to make it into group stage, it's to go the distance.
Yeah, I mean, that's big words for this team, and they definitely have the skill to do it. We've seen their impressive laning performances. That's what the team had focused on pretty much extensively. We heard it from Tabe as well. It was all about getting those solo queue stats up. But if they don't get the wins, you know, they might need a Hong Kong attitude adjustment.
That's absolutely true. I mean, they started the season 2-5. They then ended the back of it 5-2, and a lot of that was because they split their attention. They were trying to grind that solo queue, trying to find these big, you know, mechanical performers. In fact, if you go all the way back to HKA, they've had over 16 players rotating through that roster. They used to have this big kind of a prodigy mid laner in Gear, and they decided to change him up for Mission, you know, coming from Fireball, formerly from TPA, you know, playing behind someone like Toys, and to put Gear on a sideline after the reputation that he was creating in the LMS to pick up Mission, it just goes to show that Tabe had a very clear goal in mind when trying to create this powerhouse that is now the 3rd seed for the LMS.
Well, they definitely need to start putting up those results to go behind the powerhouse. Now, on the other side, I want to flip things around here for you, Frost. How can Rampage exploit those known weaknesses of HKA?
Okay, Rampage, it's been pretty rough for the LJL squad, but I feel like it's all about Tussle in particular. Tussle and Dara, really. Tussle has been known as being more of a versatile jungle. He can play the hard carry, he can play more of the Cinder Hulk, the tank. I feel like the meta is shifting more so into those carry-oriented junglers. We've even seen the likes of a Lee Sin, a lot of Jarvans running around, and I would like to see Tussle step up, especially because if you're gonna hit HKA anywhere where they're weak, it actually is in their jungle pool. God Kwai was formerly an AD carry. He's only played 10 games for jungle. He started in their series against J-Team. They just liked the results that they got, but this isn't actually their starting jungler. That's Gemini, and he's still sitting on the bench, kind of waiting to see if HK need to flex him and need to change up that style. So Tussle, you have the opportunity. You can exploit this guy, but you need to step to the task.
Yeah, maybe put himself on something a little bit more comfortable, as you were saying. On the other side, what's looked like a little bit of comfort has been the AD carry, Yutari Mayashi, but he's not necessarily been unlocked. They've been targeting Dara's champion pool pretty consistently, and I didn't like that Soraka pick.
I mean, I agree with you, but you can kind of see the mentality that they're going for. They have a hyper carry ADC, they pair him up with the Soraka, they're trying to go late game, get the Ardent Sensor. The problem was they didn't get the bridge because they didn't get the performance from that early and mid game to carry over and allow their ADC to be that superstar. So then again, it goes back into focusing on Dara, on Tussle. You guys need to step up, control the early game, control this dominant lane phase from HKA, and then allow your ADC to roll over into mid game, to roll over into late game. But so far, Rampage just simply haven't gotten there.
Yeah, and the draft as well. I mean, I criticized obviously Soraka, but also they've allowed some things through. We saw the Xayah Rakan coming up when they could have at least picked one away. And honestly, it's not super encouraging to look at the last results Rampage had against Hong Kong Attitude because it kind of just started sliding out of the control very, very early on.
But I want to stay away from the assumption that they just blundered the draft. For all we know, the coaches could have walked out of it and said, yes, we wanted to prioritize the Maokai. Yes, we felt confident enough that we could absorb them in the lane phase, take the Soraka, as opposed to them just being blind to the power of Xayah and Rakan. But we should see how things shift up here as we're now in Champion Select.
All right, Talia comes off the board quickly, and it's going to be followed by the Callista, and instantly no more Cho'Gath available for either top laner, so Hong Kong Attitude on the blue side kicking things off there. And there's a Rakan ban by Rampage.
Yep, so already the adaptation going through. We saw a Unified and Kai Wing really take to with this Xayah and the Rakan. Unified has only played Xayah so far in this tournament. Now, if you look at their big run through the regional qualifiers to even get here, it was more about the Tristana. So even if that Xayah gets pinched, although they do have priority pick, Unified can still, fall back to things like the Tristana, which he's very comfortable on.
Definitely have had a lot of experience on that Hong Kong Attitude side. Sejuani now banned away. That's been a pretty perennial jungle pick, so we'll see something a little different here. And with the last bans already done, means we get a first pick of the Jarvan locked in.
Okay, so a lot of flex pick coming out here. It can go down into Godquai's hands. It can go up into the top lane for Riris there. That does mean that the Xayah is open and available to deny from Unified. I talked about his comfort on the Tristana, so maybe Rampage are thinking that it's more worth to fight over the Trist than the Xayah, but so far Unified has looked very comfortable on both champions.
All right, so we might get to see an AD carry locked in on the Rampage side, but We already have the Rek'Sai picked up, so this is still more of the same from Tussle.
And I feel like Rek'Sai is kind of one of the champions that's really rising up in the world's meta right now. A lot of versatility with their build. You can go with the Warriors, previously of the Cinderhulk. There's the Tristana that I was talking about. I'd love to see them lock it in. I think it just offers everything that they want.
Yeah, well, I want to see what they end up pairing support-wise, because this time there's only been one support banned away from Dara, so we'll find out if that changes or if they take it for the last rotation here.
But already the strength that we set up for Rampage, we've already got out of their first 2 picks. We wanted to see a more aggressive jungle pick from Tussle. Rek'Sai certainly offers that, as well as the ability to be that CC bot going late. And then you have the super hyper scaling ADC with the Tristana. So already out of the gate, I like what Rampage are putting together in terms of the team strengths.
But over on the Hong Kong Attitude side, you can see they're building themselves up a little bit more catch. The Syndra already locked in. It's going to be a solid laning phase for Mission, most likely. Now let's see if they end up following through with this Varus for Unified. That's a lot of CC on that team already.
Yeah, you said CC, you said catch. I'm going to call it just straight pick, which means that if Hong Kong Attitude ever suffocate Rampage out of an area, ever get their Syndra ahead and have kill pressure on someone, it is very terrifying to walk into dark corners of the map. So we criticized their Baron setup, their Dragon control yesterday. It was kind of the big catalyst that allowed 1907 Fenerbahce to really punish them. With Syndra and Varus, it becomes that much more easy to control those areas of the map.
And now Rampage, they do end up locking in a support for themselves. So Dara has the Braum. This is a pretty classic combination with the Tristana. You can get that stack up really easy to get stuns off. And this is looking like a much better protection style composition for Yutari Miyashi.
And also, Pyra, you're getting everything that you wanted. You want Dara on a more playmaking support. You want a Tussle on more of an early aggressive jungler. Yutori on that hyper carry. So, like I said, I'm totally happy with Rampage. I feel like they're making the correct adjustments coming into the next day.
See if it continues. Right now, the composition definitely starting to take shape. Now, as we enter the next stage of bans, Shen's off the table, and so is the Corkster.
Corki, of course, has a decent laning phase across from Syndra just because he can itemize into the Hex Drinker, deny a lot of her burst. He's pretty safe there, can move around it. Also just strong against laning, so I like the fact that they're trying to pinch and control that matchup.
Yeah, on Rampage's side, they're going to start banning out a couple of supports. The Lulu, at least, is one, as they already had the Rakan from earlier on. And now LeBlanc's banned away also by Hong Kong Attitude, so Ramane might find himself a little bit forced into something different.
I was just going to bring up the Lucian. Yes, the Corki's been taken away. Cassiopeia has been nerfed, so probably don't want to go towards that matchup, but Lucian still fares very well into Syndra. The ability to relentless pursuit around a lot of her orbs, again, can itemize into that Hex Drinker if he really feels that he's being pinched and needs more of a defensive build, and still has kill pressure there.
Yeah, and Ramane's already faced off against Mission Syndra in their previous game. Spoiler alert, he kind of got bopped, but then again, so did the entire team. That was on Orianna. This time he'll have something a little bit more mobile. So it goes over HKA side, and they get a quick lock in on the Galio. So that means we are very likely to see that Jarvan in the jungle.
Yeah, and it's the fact that it's probably another Galio top lane. Now, coming into Worlds, Galio was played top around 32% of the time globally. Now, since Worlds play-ins has started, he's been played top 75% of the time. So we're seeing a massive swing of more Galios being flexed into the top lane versus the mid lane, and I feel like a lot of that's actually connected to the jungle picks. We're seeing a lot more warrior enchantment junglers as opposed to Cinderhulk, so you need to have that tank. A lot of tanks are going up into the top lane, and Galio slots perfectly in there because he's going to be just as tanky and bring a lot more, cross-map mobility, especially when Shin is banned.
But Rampage have decided they want to answer that with a little bit more firepower. So the Rumble's actually locked in, gives them a little bit of extra damage across the board rather than just locking another tank. Of course, they've already got two very solid tanks. Even if the Rek'Sai does go warrior, still kind of hard to break through that shell.
And so far, we have a very well-balanced composition. I look at Rampage and I feel like there's a lot of what I call bridging power, and it's champions that are responsible for picking up the early game, then handing that baton off into mid-game power spikes, then handing the baton off again into late game. So it's kind of starts with Lucian and Rek'Sai. It can then hand over into Rumble, and then they finally pass it over into Tristana's hand. So I felt like yesterday Rampage maybe drafted a little bit too much for the 5v5, the late game, and then got blown up before they got there. This composition is going to serve them much better to survive this very hard and aggressive lane phase from HKA.
I was about to say let's transition that a little bit to HK because it seems like they're doing what they do best, which is dominate on those laning phases. How big of a lead are they going to have to really build, though, if they still have some of those troubles around objectives? How much do they have to do to make sure that it's not a 50-50, it's a 60-40 or 70-30?
Well, then it's about focus in the mid lane. You look at the composition that they've put together. Varus, Janna, there's not a ton of opportunity to gank that early until Varus has the CC. You've got the Janna, so you're probably not going to die down there with the disengage. It's Galio up into the top into Rumble. So, you know, maybe you go up there, but it sounds much better to be like Jarvan Syndra. Yeah, that's probably where I'm going to camp.
I think mid lane is definitely going to be the place to watch at the start of this game, but Hong Kong Attitude looking to put the 2-0 onto Rampage and try to climb their way to the top of that group. Let's see if they're going to be able to do it as we load up onto Summoner's Rift for our first game of Day 4 here at the play-ins.
And again, attention about where these teams, what type of options they have into the early game. I mean, I don't need to point out the HKA combo of Jarvan and Galio. They got the classic cannonball there. That works very well in a 5v5.
And if you don't kill anybody with that, you just start dropping an R onto somebody who's still stuck in the pit with Syndra. So, yeah, it can be a bit of a wombo.
And that's the big thing. You know, Dara has to be so on point in this game simply because Syndra has so much kill pressure on any target that she wants. They don't have a true tank, especially if Rek'Sai, you know, depending on what she decides to itemize or what direction she wants to go, Syndra could have kill pressure on everyone.
That is definitely a scary thought, especially in the hands of Mission. Now, looks like we might be in for a few shenanigans. Riris is actually going to have to flash out. The rest of Rampage came out of the woodwork.
And that now means that Tussle has another big opportunity. We talked about, you know, options in the early game. Tussle can now go top, try to punish that lack of flash. He can go bottom, try to team up with the Braum and get the big hard CC there. Or he can cover his mid lane because Lucian needs to play that matchup aggressive if he wants to abuse Syndra. So offering a safety net by hanging around the mid lane, making sure that the other jungler isn't getting involved.
Yeah, God Kawhi will have his work cut out for him as well. Now, of course, Riris, no flash. Probably not the biggest deal, the fact that it's lost on the Galio, since he's not going to have as hard of a laning phase and going to be wanting to itemize that MR up against the Rumble anyways.
But he's still going to have to be pushed forward. You know, typically when you think about Galio, yes, he's against the Rumble, so he probably shouldn't be put in a bad situation. He can let that wave push into him. But the big thing about Galio is he's just the auto push champion. Auto push, get level 6, look for, you know, the ability to roam.
Over and over, wash, rinse, repeat. Now, Godquai getting pretty hard leashed here as Kai Wing and Unified starting off on the red.
Yeah, and he's getting leashed on the bottom side of the map, so he does have a direct pathway towards top side, again, to try to protect his top laners. So it works two different ways. If he suspects that Tussle might make a beeline for his Galio, he can try to be around the area, maybe secure the Subtle Crab, and get more of that safety net for his top laner for that flash to come back up.
Right, now, we'll check in how the bottom starts, of course. Talked about a long range, and it's going to be difficult to really get in on the Varus and Janna early on. But Yutori Mayashi's already started by getting a little bit of harass off on Unified on the lower range Tristana to kick things off, protected, as it were, by, you know, this very tanky front of Dara.
And it's the fact that they feel very confident that if it comes to an all-in, that they're going to win. They even get the better level 2. So just abusing the Braum Tristana. Again, it's Janna Varus, so you probably shouldn't have kill pressure unless the junglers get involved. But I expect that the lane will look mostly like this for the majority of the time. That does mean, though, that Dara has to be so much more careful about placing his vision if they're going to be pushed forward. Where Tussle picking up the Scuttle Crab, again, creating that safety net for his bottom lane. If they're going to be pushed forward, he needs to make sure that he gets the vision down and keeps them safe to do so.
Yeah, it's already starting to fall according to plan, though. We saw that in the draft, they definitely have learned a few lessons that we hadn't seen them really demonstrate yesterday. But now Tussle already going into the Hong Kong Attitude jungle while the Jarvan's away. The Rek'Sai can play. And Godquai's focusing a little more on the top side. He's even going to get spotted out by that ward in the brush.
Yeah, so we'll see if Godquai has a good read on where Tussle is, takes Scuttle Crab, and then walks up to the enemy Krug camp, or maybe looks for a gank on Lucian right now.
Looks like he's just walking it out for the time being.
He's
Still
like, I really need this Gromp right now.
Yeah, wow, it's very important to get your levels up. Makes a jungler grow big and strong. Mission's already down to half his health, actually, so Ramane started to bully this pretty effectively with a level advantage as well. And he can be pretty fearless. Like, he's got the cleanse. If the stun comes in, he can stop it from happening, but there's not a whole lot of vision on either side of that river, so you know, doesn't necessarily know if Godquai's around.
Yeah, the key thing is that he's playing towards the bottom side, making sure that he's near Tussle, making sure that he's near the lane that's pushed forward. He's got the 2 wards underneath him. So, like I said, Lucian needs to play this matchup aggressively if he wants to try to abuse it. They picked the Lucian into the Syndra, so obviously he felt comfortable, and now it's about staying safe.
Safe, but being able to get a little harass on as well. And for all the bluster about Hong Kong Attitude having the strong lanes, I mean, it's very early on in this game, but they're the ones who are getting pushed back in 2 out of 3 of them. And you can even see that in the top lane, they had already spotted Godquai out, and he ended up backing away. So there's really not a whole lot getting done. And Hong Kong Attitude, I mean, there's definitely a lot of time for this team, but it seems like they're not making the moves just yet.
Although oh, hold on. I was going to say he might make it into it because Godquai is actually going to walk into Tussle.
Ooh, does he stop the back?
No, he's going.
Praise Seeker gets the knockup. Now Godquai, he's got a shield on. He's going to have to flag and drag away. That means his jungle is not his for the time being.
And Raptor Camp is so important because there's so much gold and experience on the camp. So this is actually a big deal right now if Tussle can deny a lot of these Raptors.
Might be in for a smite fight. Throws the flag down once again. Tussle trying, but he's a little bit low on the health bar now. Ramane Dara getting involved. There's the smite down. So they're going to try to catch Mission out. Scatter the weak, stuns up Dara. Pretty big commitment there from Rampage, but the name of the game is deny the Jarvan.
Frankly, I just kind of like the action from Tussle. You know, he's making his back. If he doesn't run into Jarvan, that's fine. He's going to get the back anyway. Happens to catch him out. The Raptor Camp spawns, so he tries to deny what he can from the enemy jungler. Again, Godquai is really the guy that you need to target and attack on this HKA roster. He doesn't have a ton of experience in the jungle. Formerly was their ADC, so definitely comfortable with the team. But the team themselves has said it. We're strong laners, but we do have a weakness in our jungle.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you don't get as much experience as somebody like Tussle has. And even though Hong Kong Attitude came into this tournament looking like a more favored team than Rampage, kind of proved it during their previous matchup, we're already starting to see that they can take a few lessons out of their losses and start to move forward. And this is the win conditions you were talking about. Tussle being active in the early game, putting Godquai onto the back foot. That's one of them.
Yeah, but it's about how he's been active, and it's putting and tracking the enemy jungler. It's not necessarily setting up his lanes and ganking very heavily. He's pretty much letting his lanes do a lot of the work for him, being pushed forward in the mid lane, pushed forward in the bottom lane, and then using those pressure points to pivot and invade, figure out where Godquai is.
Still be pretty effective in those team fights. Now level 6 comes in. Ramane spends the last of his mana on a culling. Mission down a little bit low. He's pushed far forward too, but he's also playing up towards the top side where Godquai is not too far away, and they've got vision in that river, so they know there won't be any Rek'Sais out of nowhere. Ramane playing a little dangerous.
It isn't a great situation, yeah, for Lucian right now. He wants to get this big wave, but it's going to force Tussle to actually hang around him just so he doesn't get dove or threatened by Mission. Although now it's opened up a gank opportunity.
Looks like it's bait. Insta flash, but he's still going to follow through with one of his own, and now Ramane on the chase. Looks like we're going to have some backup, but will it be too little too late? No, it is not, as Riris comes in. First blood's going to be on Tussle, as it's picked up by Riris, and to scatter the weak. Scatters Ramane back to the safety of his tower.
And an unfortunate read for Rampage right there. I understand what Tussle's trying to do. He sees that his Lucian's in trouble. He's got a big wave. He doesn't want to just allow Cinder to repeatedly punch him in the face under the tower, but just overreaches a bit. Just take the flash and walk away. Great rotation from Riris there.
Yep, and that's exactly what the Galio needs to do. We were talking about it earlier. Getting involved as soon as he can, level 6s, and here's where it was.
Yeah, and look at where Galio is on the map. The fact that he's not in the top lane, so that should have been communicated to Tussle that he can't overreach there. And unfortunately for him, his mid laner just didn't have the mana to follow up and to try to find that kill. That's a completely different story if Lucian is able to immediately relentless pursuit forward and trade that passive.
All right, so despite giving up first blood, and ends up going into the Galio, of course, as opposed to the Syndra, it seems like this isn't the worst thing in the world for Rampage. They've just lost a little bit of pressure in that mid lane. Well, might be a little worse in the top. Taunts out, flag drag. Evi's already going to flash it. He's out, but on half a health bar.
And we talked about the first blood. The thing is that Riris now has his MR item. He's got the Spectral's Cowl, so he's going to be very comfortable to push forward into that lane. It is going to be an opportunity, especially with Evie, not having his flash. Again, Jarvan Galio, there's a lot of CC and lockdown there. Rumble's not the tankiest champion, so there is an opportunity for kill pressure here if Godquai wants to commit to it, but he probably needs to protect Mission. Yes, the Syndra didn't die there, but he did burn his flash. That's a pretty easy lockdown maneuver once Rek'Sai gets her ultimate, so I would expect Tussle to hard farm, get level 6, and immediately look at mid lane.
Yeah, and the top's going to be able to sustain itself for a little while, despite the fact that Evie can't quite do as much damage. Maybe a little more once he evolves into Flareon.
Thank you. Now I will never mispronounce it again.
I've saved it. There we go.
I was always a Vaporeon girl, though.
Really? I did Jolteon personally, but electric types are OP. Anyways, back into this one. Yutari Miyashi, he's kept pretty keel on even with Unified, but they keep this pressure up, and obviously neither jungler's really gotten involved. I feel like that's going to change soon because there is an Infernal Dragon on the map, and that's going to be fairly valuable if this game trends this direction of going a little longer.
I mean, the thing is it, again, opens up the opportunity for Tussle to start blitzing in and laying down that deep vision over the red buff jungle. Right now, again, hard farming to that level 6, now has the ultimate. I expected that he would go mid and try to abuse the flashless Syndra, but there is also the other option of just trying to hunt down Godquai. You know, he does have the pressure point in bottom lane, might need to help them out if Jarvan pops his head down there.
Very possible. So Ramane, he'll be the one picking up the blue buff on a couple more auto attacks, and they'll keep him full of mana, the thing that he wasn't able to do last time when they tried to make the 1v2 happen in the mid lane. Although, Tussle, let's see where he ends up going.
Mission's in a risky situation. He doesn't want to be pushed forward. The wave is already pushed in, so you can see that he's kind of like wandering around like, I guess I'll clear wards. I can't be forward. I just have to wait for the creep wave to come down to me because I don't have the safety of my flash.
Yeah, trying to play it out as safe as possible. And there's a lot of control wards up in this top side jungle, but it's not going to help to try and spot out Tussle because, well, he's towards the bottom side, not going in for the dive yet.
But it's totally fine. HK are doing the right thing. Mission is doing the right thing. He's just playing safe. He pushes it forward and then he just wanders away. He's like, please, get me my blue buff, get me out of here. I just have to hang on a little bit longer before I can turn this lane and go aggressive again. Now, what that means is that they can start playing the bottom lane for Rampage because the mid laner is not going to be putting a lot of pressure, which means that Lucian is opened up. You know, he's ducking in, he's scouting for ward, trying to clear out this track behind the Baron, or excuse me, the Dragon Pit, so they can open a gank path towards that bottom lane, which is always pushed forward.
Yeah, it's obviously completely dark for Hong Kong Attitude. Ooh, Kaiwing, he gets caught up for just a second, not stunned, but meanwhile there's a gank up top. Godquai, he flashes forward. Oh, and there's going to be a Hero's Entrance on top of that Rumble. There's no flash, and Eevee, let's see what he can do. Taunted up under the tower. Tussle trying in for the relief effort, but just too late.
Yeah, too little too late, and great vision from HKA that allowed their mid laner to stay safe, which then freed up Godquai to punish the flashless Rumble into the top lane. So they read the map. They understand we can't go bottom, we can't go mid, but we can certainly go top. Everyone hang tight.
Yeah. Frustration, Ramane spends out his culling, just trying to get a little chip damage onto Mission. Of course, he turns it right back around with the Dark Sphere. Tussle hanging on to top lane because he can't afford to give this minion wave away. Yutaro Miyashi already a little low himself, but despite being down 2 kills, doesn't seem like nearly as bad as it was last time these two teams met.
I mean, they're certainly faring better. Their towers aren't dropping as early, but hold on. HKA going aggressive because here comes Mission.
Oh boy, Yutaro Miyashi preemptively heals it out, but Dara might go down anyways. Mission unleashes the power straight into the ultimate. Or the Unbreakable, I should say, and he's staying alive as Dara.
Yeah, but the damage has been done. They do have a big creep wave. They also have the Janna, and it looks like they're going to commit to the push. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Lucian is pressuring forward, but he doesn't have the creep wave, and he doesn't have the sidekicks.
All right, so Hong Kong Attitude utilizing a little bit of a power spike for themselves. Not so much in the items, but the fact that they've just got 3 people down bot to try and push it out.
Oh, hold on. There is a TP, and they're also pinging deep. There's a ward there, so Eevee could look for it, but looks like they're just
minions.
Gonna let it go.
No, Cario, back again, second round. Okay, so thinking about it, but Rampage decided not to go all in on that, and that's first tower.
Yeah, big problem is that the bot lane wasn't in position. You have to think if Braum and Tristana were a little bit closer, maybe they would have pulled the trigger, sent the Rumble down there, and tried to look for a skirmish. But overall, again, just a great read from HKA. They understand that Rek'Sai was up into the top lane, had to respond to the big creep wave to try to hold onto the tower, and with information about where the enemy jungler was, Mission knew that he was safe to wander down into the bottom river, not going to walk into a 2v1 scenario, which freed him up for the roam.
Yep. As a result of all that, Hong Kong Attitude, they find themselves with a 3,000 gold lead. It's only 12 minutes in. However, they will lose out on this Infernal Drake because Rampage just realized, all right, well, you didn't take all the spoils of war, so we're going to come in here and just grab the rest of it.
Yeah, just that tug of war of tempo. You know, if HKA are going to expend their time, maybe overreach on the map in terms of time spent, take the first tower, they're then going to make their immediate backs, which opens up a window for the Infernal Drake.
And that's so important for Rampage, right? Like, not only are you down against a team that's going to be a little more laning dominant anyways, but your win conditions are try to play up into that late game. You have this bridge comp that you talked about. The Lucian's strong, the Rumble will soon be strong, but eventually it's going to be all on the back of Yutaro Miyashi, and that's a Tristana that has an Infernal Drake, extra AD. You're not going to want to miss that.
And you know, everyone talks about the Tristana in the late game, but I'm also a big fan of Lucian in the late game. I think a lot of teams really underestimate his damage as well as Rumble. I mean, you look at Lucian Rumble, you're like, bam, mid-game power spike. But late game, if these guys get the space, they're still putting out some massive numbers alongside that Tristana.
That's a good point. And all things considered, when you have Rira stacking MR on this Rumble, or excuse me, on the Galio, it's going to be, you know, not nearly as effective as when Ramane's spending a big culling into his head, but Adaptive Helm up, of course, already completed. Another tower is going to fall. It keeps that gold lead going. And Godquai was a little bit deep, but he takes the Blast Cone Express out over the Rift Herald pit, and it gets aggroed on the way out.
Does need to be a little bit careful here because you can tell that Rampage don't want to let this Rift Herald go just for free. They've also pulled Dara, so they have the numbers advantage, at least for the top side of the map, until HK decide they want to reset the map, send their Galio bot side, and move their bot top side.
I think Rampage wanted to reset something, but Mission, he was able to spend a couple of cooldowns to push back Ramane. and Tussle, and Dara, I should say. Dara just been on a roaming spree because at this point, laning phase is over. He can leave Yutori Miyashi to his own devices, and there's no counter pressure.
There's also the fact that, you know, Yutori's sitting on the Tristana. He's totally fine to play a side lane more so than most other AD carries. Has the ultimate to push back, has the rocket jump, so a lot of safety there. And you can use the Tristana then to create a pressure point. So you can already see Yutori's hard pushing bottom, just trying to dissuade HKA from automatically walking up to the Rift Herald because he's threatening the structure.
There's actually a lot of Rampage members down towards bot. Unified, I don't think he's in danger of being dove anytime soon, though, because Kai Wing's there, so is God Choir, just about in the area. But once again, Rampage continue this trend of building up vision just inside of the Hong Kong Attitude bot side jungle. And they're also keeping a lot of it clear for themselves up top. They see Mission moving up here.
But the problem is the vision's not where it needs to be. The central focus is going to be around that Rift Herald. And you can see that HKA are starting to unlock their mid laner, roaming up there, threatening the Rumble. Again, Rumble sitting on the variety bucket of items, has a book, has a Ruby Crystal.
That's a discount build right now.
It's not great. I know Rumble's a low econ champion. He gets a lot of his strength through his levels and his ability to use that ultimate, but he's not feeling good right now, and HKA can exploit that.
Yeah, it starts to get a little bit better. He does pick up a Haunting Guys and a Blasting Wand, so he's definitely well on his way to getting the Leandri's Torment, but I think he's been a little more tormented than that to start things off. Now, looks like we're in for a dive. Teleport ward already down, and Godfly looking to go in. Oh, they've got to jump up, and Yutori Miyashi is going to get a knockback, but Galio's right behind him, and even though Evi's there, it's not going to be nearly enough. Even Mission coming in, not needed for the cleanup duty. That's a double kill for Unified.
And there's a lot of members here, not the biggest creep wave, so they should be cleared out by Rampage, and their tower shouldn't be underhand, but hold on.
Oh man, Evi even flashes, but he gets taunted up off the back half, forcing out Ramane. It's ultimate now. Unified still trying to push forward. They've not got that many minions, but they've spent a lot out of the health bars.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing. They chipped away at the health bar, which means that they now have the time to wait for the creep wave to crash, and now the inner tower is under threat, especially with Jarvan on the side.
Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude just pulling the go switch and realizing they can take out a couple members of Rampage right off the bat. 4-0 on the kills. They're about to make it 3-0 on the towers. And there it is. As soon as they hit that power spike with the best item in League of Legends, as it were, the Ardent Sensor, there they go.
And it's just set up from the very beginning. HKA have had a much better read on the map for pretty much the big two plays that they've made. Sets down the ward, gets the automatic teleport, and Godfly, it doesn't get easier Cataclysm than that. Forces the flash as well as the rocket jump out of Tristana, which means as soon as she's locked in, she's not going anywhere. Then Dara will fall down, but the biggest mistake that I think Rampage make in this instance is that Rumble overreaches a little bit, loses so much of his health bar, which means he can't sit under the tower and try to clear out with his team with Flame Spitter.
Yeah, we were just talking about how he's been having a little bit of a hard time. It continues. That's only, well, he only had one death. He ended up getting away, but unfortunately they couldn't defend the tower off the back of it. So Rampage, they've definitely got some catching up to do. 6,000 gold is the deficit. Hong Kong Attitude. I asked you at the beginning of this game, how big did it need to be at about 15 or so minutes for HKA to feel pretty comfortable starting some big things up like the Baron once it hits? What do you think about 6K?
It's definitely big, and it's a big deal at 17 minutes. Again, HK are just starting to move into that portion of the game. However, when their setup is what we need to be examining. It was questionable, I'm going to say, against 1907 Fenerbahce yesterday. So we'll keep our eyes. How do they move their vision? How do they protect their vision? And how do they create picks off of their vision? Again, it's the Syndra, it's the Varus, the Jarvan. They have a ton of potential.
Now the picks have definitely been coming, and they've even got disengaged right now. Now Mission, oh, there's a heal forced out. Godquai even tanking the last half of the culling. And now there's pressure on Rampage's side mid. Not a whole lot of minions, though.
But we do see Galio starting to rotate over. He's trying to decide, do we collapse into the mid lane and look for the team fight, or do I continue to pressure forward on the top lane, create a big pivot point that we can then reset our backs and move towards that Infernal Drake?
That's the thing for Hong Kong Attitude, though. They've got the choices right now. It seems like Rampage doesn't really have much of one. They kind of have to try and force down the mid.
Yeah, I love the word that you use, choices, there, because I feel like HKA, it seems so subtle, and yes, the gold lead is pretty big, but the kill count is low, 4-0. That doesn't, that's not indicative of a high action game, but I feel like HKA have actually been super proactive in driving the tempo and controlling a lot of these choices. You know, it was Tussle that, and I'm going to hard farm to level 6, I can punish the flashless Syndra, but he never got the opportunity because he's always just been responding to what Godquai was doing in the early game.
Yeah, but he actually was able to preempt Godquai in the very beginning quite effectively. We were giving him a lot of praise for being able to try and shut him down, but it just wasn't quite enough, and it seemed like that effort kind of went all out the window the moment he tried to save his mid laner and ended up giving first blood.
Yeah, HK just understanding exactly where to attack on the map and then executing on it beautifully so far, as they are going to go ahead and start up the Infernal. It should be uncontested again. Rampage, they're simply down in gold, they're down in vision, and they don't want to try to overextend risk, especially this close to a Baron spawn. You lose the 5v5 there, HK are just going to rock over to the Baron and pretty much close out the game.
Yeah, that's 40 seconds until the Baron's going to spawn up. Rampage pretty much stuck under the mid turret for the time being. They've, of course, sent Evie up to the top side and Ramane down to the bottom just to keep waves cleared so it's not an easy Baron take when it does come up. But Hong Kong Attitude, they've got all the tools in their kit to try and fire down anyone if they find them.
But this is where the magnifying glass gets to be set up on HKA. If you're going to talk big, if you're going to be a top 16 team, guess what? The Baron spawning in 19 seconds, the next Dragon's going to be an Infernal. Where do you place your vision? How easily do you execute on it? How are you managing your side wave control when you are setting up these big objectives? It doesn't matter if this is Rampage, if this is Fenerbahce, if this is SKT. This is where you need to clean up if you are going to walk the big walk. You got to have a big stick.
Yeah, and it's definitely not going to be the most difficult opponent to prove it against, but we've seen Hong Kong Attitude already make some big mistakes, so maybe this is the time to try and rectify that to, better their own objective setups.
It's also putting the onus on them to continue to drive the tempo of the game. Rampage at this point, they kind of want to sit back, look for these big 5v5s where they can utilize the Rumble. He's level 12, has 2 points in the ultimate, so despite the fact that he's probably not feeling too comfortable in his build, he still will hurt. But it's about buying time for Yutori and this Tristana.
Yeah, it looked like Hong Kong Attitude wanted to try to get the catch off, but it was Dara that they managed to find, and this is the team fight chance for Rampage. Can they get the kills off? Godquite not quite going down, but they've got a taunt up onto the Tristana. Yutori Miyachi going down to Mission's ultimate. Power unleashed on that last tick of health bar. Now Ramane trying to save some lives off the back half of it. Doesn't really matter too much. Evie's forced to flash back behind the wall of Dara. And Hong Kong Attitude not losing a man. They are too big, too tanky.
Yeah, and they've got the tempo behind them as well as the creep wave. So this will be a free tower, which makes it that much easier to now blitz that vision on the top red side jungle and make this Baron even easier to secure when they turn towards it.
I suppose everything is free if you kill the ones who own it. Down goes the Tristana, results in the tower. Yeah, there's another Infernal Drake coming up in a while, but the Baron, it just gets easier and easier when they have all of this gold. I just wonder how soon are they going to actually try to go towards it. Right now, they don't seem to be in a big rush.
Yeah, but let's take another look at that team fight. Unfortunately, Yutori there, he does have his flash available. He tries to use the rocket jump. It's interrupted, and then he's just CC locked that he never even gets the opportunity to flash away. Now, this starts, and it looks okay for Rampage, but it's when Riris finds the taunt there on Trist. She gets locked down, she's got nothing left, and she just pops like a balloon.
All right, I have a recommendation for you, Yutori Miyashi. Buy QSS.
I would just say press F.
Well, a little faster, yeah. It's on D, though.
Ah, see, that's his problem. I stand firm on this. F is for flash.
You do need, is it in Japanese as well?
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't know, actually. I've never played on LGL. But anyways, 5 kills to 0 for Hong Kong Attitude. You talked about it not being necessarily as high of an action game, but it's played exactly to the win condition. They get the catches. Even in extended team fights, it kind of does feel like a series of catches that just keeps resulting in towers. For every kill, they've managed to knock one down.
And they might get another catch, though, as Tussle is trying to create space for his mid laner here. Might be in trouble.
He was seeking prey, but it was Hong Kong Attitude that found it. Ramane jumping, there's the pit, flashing out. Kaiwing and Godquai still hanging on, and looks like Ramane expends pretty much everything, but he does get out alive.
The classic Janna player. You can always tell playmaking supports when they play Janna because they rush forward and everything. Like, no, I got the slow, I got this.
I'm gonna throw the little bird at you. Ah, yeah, Janna supports. Kaiwing definitely showing up pretty impressive in this game so far. Let's see if they can keep it going. There's the lockdown on the Rumble, and in comes Riris. The gank squad was real in the mid lane. 23 minutes, we've got 6 kills on the board for Hong Kong Attitude.
And again, it's another pick. That said, I know what Evie was trying to do right there. Lucian up into the top lane had expended his flash. He was trying to buy time. You know, they're trying to force the waves to keep HKA bouncing between top and mid, delay them from starting this Baron. Unfortunately, Evie wasn't able to get the hell out of dodge and back into the safe zone.
Yeah, now Hong Kong Attitude, it's pretty much all dark in that Baron pick, courtesy of the control ward. It's starting to fall pretty fast, but is this the time for Tussle to try and be the hero? I don't know if he's going to get the chance. His Mission standing on the back, trying to force him back, and Dara, he's got the block up here, but they can see they're going to turn around. Don't need the big purple worm. Instead, they want the fight, turning it over onto Tussle if they can get him out of the picture while the Baron's still aggroed. Looks like Mission's going to get knocked back, but he's staying alive for the time being. That's a big shield. Baron gets smited on down, and Riris is still holding on to everyone from Rampage.
Here comes Evie.
Hong Kong Attitude, they've not lost a man. Evie looking to come around the side, but it might be too little and too late. Godquai still stunned up. Looks like he's going to be the first casualty of the team, or is he? One more auto attack is going to do it for Ramane, but that is a death well spent as Hong Kong managed to get themselves 4 members on the Baron.
And that was a better Baron setup from HK. This time around, they decided that, yes, the jungler is in position, but we have faith in our mid laner and our support to be able to clear out the back of the pit. So you can see Mission, he started on the back. He was just trying to force people out of line. He then burns the ultimate on Tristana before it's like, hey guys, we need to get Tussle out of here. Galio forces him over the other side of the wall, and meanwhile, the team just burns the Baron.
Yeah, Mission nearly went down, but it was a clutch shield on the end of it, and we're still buying a lot of time. Eventually, you can see Godquai tag his way in. Probably unnecessary. A little bit ham there, but that's okay, Godquai. You can tell he used to be an AD carry.
He's playing Tristana right now on Jarvan.
Wait, I don't have a jump backwards. So the only downside for Hong Kong Attitude right now is they don't have a chance to get the perfect game anymore that they screwed up the last time they met.
Well, they also lost to Dragon, so that chance...
Oh, yeah, I guess that doesn't count, does it?
It sailed a long time ago.
Well, I missed the boat every now and again.
But it's about improving on the weaknesses that we saw yesterday, which was the Baron setup. You know, it was 2 steals that really turned the tides of 1907 Fenerbahce's game. And this time around, it wasn't stolen, so we're already on the up.
Well, they also did it so effectively to block out the potential steal attempt as Godquai finds Death Brush, but looks like it might be the death of Rampage. Riris going all the way in. The equalizer's thrown down, but it's just going to make them back off. Riris even claiming a kill for himself, while the rest of the team is bringing up the rear. That's a double kill. That Galio deals some serious damage. Shield of Duran, Ramane stunned up. Scout of the Weekend unified with the last hit. It means the door is wide open for Hong Kong Attitude.
And Riris is just so far ahead of the clock right now. The gold advantage, you can already see 10k in his favor. Doesn't matter. He's also got the Baron on top of it. Effectively, he is unkillable. There's no one who can do damage to him, so he's free to just run freely into the backlines and create so much space for his team.
And he's been a part of every single one of the kills Hong Kong Attitude have had in this game, and it looks like that might be all the ones as they're looking to close this out, just zoning out Yutori Miyashi as the Unleashed Power comes in. He hops back into the fountain, but their Nexus towers are being cut through. Dara, last chance saloon here as he throws up the Glacial Fissure, but the Nexus is bare with the minions on top. Tussle going down and out. Nothing they can really do here as Mission gets himself a spree kill, and this is going to be all she wrote for Hong Kong Attitude. This is the start. This team wants to be top 16, and a big win on their board is going to help them do it.
And it's only a single kill as well as an Infernal Drake that denies them the perfect game. HKA came in today and said, we are going to smash everyone, and it started here with Rampage.
Well, smash is definitely a very appropriate verb for that game. Hong Kong Attitude showed up, and they put their money where the mouths are. Twice now against Rampage.
And huge props to their top laner. You know, talking to this team, personally, I'm looking at their AD carry, I'm looking at their mid lane, I'm like, wow, you know, Mission's really underrated. Unified, of super strong, one of the top ADCs in the LMS, but the team's like, no, our big strong point is Riris, his ability to understand when he needs to split push, when he needs to collapse to the team. Galio is a perfect champion to empower everything that the team believes that their top laner is good at.
Certainly fits the meta as well, so really good time, and Riris just showed up and delivered multiple times as a hero's entrance, and he really was the hero of that game.
Yep, was able to create massive pressure pivot points for them to move around, was pretty much on point with the teleport. It was the big TP bottom that really got things snowballed ahead when they took down Yutori as well as Dara there, catching them a little bit too far forward.
Yeah, and we talked about the way that Rampage were going to be able to kind of stack up their comp towards the later stages of the game. Unfortunately, the snowball just rolled down too fast for them to really be able to handle. One pick turned into another, turned into a tower, turned into a massive gold lead, and there just wasn't a whole lot of chance for this team.
But you can already see the adaptation that the LGL attempted there, you know, mixing up their draft. It wasn't the Soraka this time around, it was the Braum. They did have pressure in their lanes. They did effectively survive the lane phase. They didn't just get blown out. It was when HKA started to create these skirmishes and move around the map that Rampage started to fall behind. So even though they lost, there were improvements.
Yeah, glimmers of hope for the Rampage team. Now, to hear more about that game, let's send it over to Dracos and the analysts.
Thank you very much, Pyra. An incredibly one-sided game, and really it felt like LJL only got a chance, or Rampage rather, only got a chance in the first few minutes of the game. It felt like everything fell south after that.
Yeah, as game time increases, probability goes down for winning, and they had better picks this time around to try and do that. The Lucian, Rek'Sai is a good combination if you're going to try and snowball around mid lane. Syndra, while dominant, can be a little exposed to gank pressure just because she's so immobile.
I know that Tristana for the late game as well. So when you look at the drafting, you give them compliments for what it's worth. That might be an improvement. I know Froscarin even alluded to that during the cast. They did do some things better than we saw from them yesterday.
Of course, though, when we look at these first few early plays, you can see that while their head was kind of in the right space, they were trying to make the right things happen. Ultimately, a lot of the early plays backfired, and that felt like what cost them.
Yeah, a big problem here was just that Lucian has stayed on the map too long, ends up with no mana, no way to actually deal with this. Syndra is pushed all the way up, so they called a jungler to try and make this work, and it seems like it's gonna get a kill, but Galio comes in at just the right time, able to collapse on this play, knock up Tussle, and make sure that this does not result in a kill in the mid lane.
Yeah, we were looking at this while watching the replay, and how was a Galio even there? Well, it just happened that he was recalling to get a Spectre's Cal and was at the right place at the right time. But once again, they get that first kill onto their top laner, and Rurus is able to run away with that. Compliments of Jarvan being everywhere that he needs to. Started to warm up, and all of that early pressure of the Rek'Sai slowly dwindled.
And Rurus was a huge factor here specifically. He felt like he was everywhere. He's involved in so many of the plays consistently. Coming in is just a fantastic player for Hong Kong Attitude. I think he is the guy that seems to me, at least, that stepped up so much this game to make this win happen.
I think that's really good, just 100% kill participation. And moving forward to their rematch versus 1907 Fenerbahce, this is the big thing that you want to see is more people step up around them, because it did feel like they were not all on the same page come the team fighting phase. And hopefully this is an indicator that they're going to work better together.
Yeah, a lot of good Galios throughout all of the tournament, particularly from Group C and D, and this is no exception to that rule. I think it was fantastic.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about that, because normally we see Galio mid, we saw Jensen play. This is the era of Galio top, it feels like. Is this something that we expect to see consistently, or is this something kind of exclusive to the meta that we have here?
It feels like I'm not quite 100% ready to say why the priority on Galio has shifted from mid lane to top lane. I do think that some of these teams are not ready to punish it in the top lane quite like how you would expect, where you see people start taking things into it that really bully it hard early, like Renekton and stuff like that, that can shut it down. And then it feels like a lot more of these players are more tank focused in the top lane, and they don't want to play hyper carries against it. And, you know, because you see Camille's with Galios in the mid, and those, when you don't play those in the top lane, the Galio mid becomes less effective because you don't have that combination potential to collapse when it's a potential 1-3-1.
We've seen some attempts at counters to it as well, like Fiora from Chippy's even on the dire walls. We know that Renekton is a pick that could be done into it, but ultimately these counters, even as counter picks, haven't been successful. And so you do have to bring it back to, is there anyone in this tournament that can beat the Galio top lane? If no, why not pick it every single time, right? Maybe it is just that good.
Right, it's a combination of you don't have a good way to beat it in the top lane, and you don't have something you want to play that would make you force it into the mid lane.
It also feels like we have a lot of mid laners who are pretty dominant. We've seen the Syndra play in there he was consistently pushing that Lucian in. So I'm wondering if this is a, hey, we don't want to put you on a Galio, because yes, it is a playmaking pick, but ultimately Galio just doesn't do damage, right? And it feels like a lot of these teams have been reliant on their mid laners to make pretty big impact in the game.
There's also that world where you do need to flex it to the top lane, most importantly, when you've got Cassiopeia running around in the mid lane, can do work against the Galio. Lucians that are being picked even in this game as an example. One more reason you maybe don't want to be in that matchup, and I think this is the biggest thing above all else for it, is you have to dodge the bad lane, and there is no bad one up top.
Galio, though, feels like it's going to continue to be a varied pick. I want to shift attention back to Hong Kong Attitude, because they have now locked themselves into the elimination match. Not first seed or second seed yet. We'll find that out as we move later into the day, but they are at least getting second, and this team does feel like, to a certain degree, that they have stepped up across their games. I'm wondering what feels like the biggest weakness for them right now as we look to the games ahead of them.
I mean, that 18 to 20 minute mark, you see that the gold lead kind of slowly tapers off right there. And when it was against 1907 Fenerbahce, they actually end up losing that gold lead that they had. So I think they need to make sure that they continue to play aggressive in the mid and late game, and maybe clean up a little bit around Baron, because they don't necessarily need to force these 50-50 Barons. Focus more on the turn-off, potentially, something like that.
Yeah, so I think the word aggression is where you lose me a little bit here as well, because they hit mid-game, they hit late game, and that aggression almost just completely stops. It almost feels too slow from them, and when you bring this back to the 1907 Fenerbahce match, I mean, you're giving them opportunities to come back into the game. That's one too many than you should have. This attempt at this fleeting illusion of a perfect game that they seem to consistently want to get hasn't been there for them, and I think they need to accelerate how they're winning games when they have leads if they want to shore up what I would define as, honestly, not just a weakness, but something that people could attack.
And it does feel like that when we look at, of course, the double steals coming up against them, against Fenerbahce. So how do they speed that up? Is it a matter of just more aggressively playing around Baron, looking for picks? What do you feel like is the next step for them?
I think potentially just, this is why I like the Galio pick a lot, is because it allows you to brute force some of those dive plays. So in this game, you saw that one time that Rampage extended in the bot lane, they dropped the ward behind, they go for that big TP play. I felt like they lacked some of those really back-breaking plays in that series, and I think that's the big thing to look for. Don't risk the 50-50 Barons. Don't get in, fully even.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Day 4 of the play-in stage here at Worlds 2017. We are turning towards our next game of the day. It is Chaos Latin Gamers versus Young Generation. Now, let's get things started by looking at the players fighting for their world's lives right now. KLG, of course, is going to be on one of the sides. I don't even know what side they're on. I'm going to check it out later, because in the top lane, we've got Mantaraya. In the jungle, it's Tierwolf. Plugo on the mid, Fix in the bot lane with support Slow, and their coach, Pierre.
And aiming to disrupt the group standings, it's Young Generation on the other side. In the top lane, it's now Nocti. Jungle, it's going to be Venus. Mid lane is Null. Big Koro is your ADC, and Pallet is your support.
Followed by Chung, the coach. Absolutely. So yeah, now the first time these guys faced off, Young Generation looked completely outclassed after a laning phase that was okay-ish. A lot of mistakes.
I mean, that said, it was Young Generation that was pressing the envelope. You know, it was really that big, deep mid-lane play where things started to turn around, where they tried to go all in, tried to blow up the Orianna, then things just got turned around sideways, and then it just snowballed from there. But until that point, Young Generation was looking very good, and that goes back to Null. The big thing that I want to see is we've had completely different night and day performances from him. His first game on Syndra, a little bit shaky. His 1v1 outkills on Caps, much better. So we need to see more of the Fnatic Young Generation and less of the KLG Young Generation.
Yeah, but unfortunately they're playing up against KLG. You got to think they've learned a few lessons. Maybe you can shock some of the performance on early up to World's nerves, if you will. But things change up a little bit for this team, especially with Nocti up in the top lane, because he is the guy that got them the wins they needed to even qualify for Worlds. They had to reverse sweep their way in, and Ren was on the losing side of those. This is a very different style of player.
Yeah, and I want to really underline this topic. I know that a lot of what is defining Young Generation is the conversation around Gigabyte Marines, but they are their own identity and they are their own team. And it's actually an upset for them to even make it here as the GPL second seed. You know, coming in, Ascension was the big favorite team. They reverse swept them. They decided to disrupt and come into it. So while Gigabyte Marines are kind of leading the charge and everyone knows that team and everyone grapples to their success, Young Generation, things have been a lot more turbulent. And so they're still just trying to find their own identity and their own footing. And that does start with Nocti up into that top lane. Much wider champion pool, much more diversified player. And with Young Generation trying to play these carry-oriented top laners like the Renekton, it does help to have a more consistent top laner up there.
Yeah, stable, I think, is definitely a way I'd like to put it. And of course, you know, they can put him on things like the Gallia. We saw what Reris was able to do on that champion last game, and you know, that might just be exactly what they need to take a victory here to try and get one back. They need to be able to get win to stay alive. Remember, they can really only force tiebreakers at this point. They got to be able to start winning every single one they've got left. Of course, it's definitely tough when you're in a group with Fnatic, even though they had a better performance against that team.
Yeah, it was much closer. That said, Fnatic's composition was made to kind of scale up late, but it kind of a little bit of a misstep when it came towards the mid game. But it goes again to the individual talents on the Young Generation roster. They do get a lot of scrim time with the Gigabyte Marines. I know I just gave this whole speech like, no, they're their own person. Team,
but they scrim them a lot.
But they scrimmed them a lot. And you can see that in the individual talents. You know, Vietnam, massive voice, massive player base, and a lot of that talent starts to bleed forward. We have someone like SOFM running around in my region.
Oh, yeah.
Levi made his big debut on the international stage. And specifically, I know I've been talking a lot about the top lane, but the AD carry, Big Koro for this team is actually a guy to watch for.
Absolutely. Now we're into picks and bans already. We haven't talked as much about KLG, but this is a team that's been looking pretty stable themselves, even at a 1-1 record. They start off by banning the Rek'Sai and the Syndra. Fresh follows suit on the other side.
The nice thing about Chaos Latin Gamers is how they've diversified their style over the course of 2017. They used to be the big, slow, you know, moving the chains, 35, 45-minute games, which makes them very stable in terms of their late-game macro shot calling. But on the back half of their split, they started to speed things up, show that other side of aggression, and get early game snowballs rolling for them. So they have a lot of tools. They now just need to prove that they can do it on an international stage.
Yeah, well, they've already proved it once against Young Generation. We'll see if they'll be able to do it again. Another jungler gets banned away. It's the Elise. And for YG's side, Kallista's off the board. The last ban coming through is going to be Sejuani. So Jungle Pool actually kind of hit pretty hard here. We'll see if KLG want to pick up a quick one for Tierwolf.
And that's something that's pretty unique about Young Generation coming to this tournament. We haven't seen a ton of, you know, hyper-aggressive junglers. We've seen a couple of Lee Sins popping their head up. Yeah, everyone likes the Jarvan, but I feel like he's more of a hybrid. And as the warrior junglers or the more aggressive junglers start to rotate back into form, that's where a lot of power goes back to Venus. So I like the fact that they're denying him the Rek'Sai, denying him the Elise.
Yeah, but if Venus is definitely putting in some serious damage, I feel like Tierwolf's going to be more like Mars, because at this point, he does a lot of damage in the early game himself, and he's going to have a chance if he ends up being the one on the J4. Now, Young Generation get a chance to pick themselves up the Lover's bot lane, and they do, but KLG in
team fights, try and find people extended in side lanes and blow them up. Yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. We're now going to send it over to Fish, who's standing by for an interview with the Hong Kong Attitude support.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Kaiwing, the support for Hong Kong Attitude after their victory over Rampage. You guys have played Rampage twice now. What did you expect going into these games against Rampage?
首先恭喜你们获得刚刚那一场比赛的胜利。那你们现在已经对上他们2次了，然后获得胜利。在面对他们之前，你对他们的期待是什么？就是在跟他们比赛之前。
And we're not even going to pretend anymore. Galio is probably going up to the top lane. That's where he's really been situated. Mataraya would be perfectly fine picking that up. He looked great on the Cho'Gath, so obviously can turn on the tanks, but it could still technically be a flex pick.
Yeah, technically, of course, and we could say the same thing about the Jarvan, I suppose, right? But this is all the makings of a good old protection comp, and you get the big front line. People can't really get in touch with the Kog'Maw anymore, and he's just pew-pewing. But it does leave the Cho'Gath open, so Nocti's going to get a chance on that one.
So either feeling that they understand what the matchup's going to be and comfortable for Nocti to take the Cho'Gath, or just actually trying to deny that from Mataraya. If they already have the Galio, they don't also want to go.
前也是有团练的，这是我们很清楚，也是比 FB 更了解他们的角色啊，他们的打法是什么，所以我们在比赛上面就很容易可以针对他们的套路，然后来一些战术套路，去赢下游戏。
So Rampage is a team that we scrimmed a lot against, so we're familiar with them, we're familiar with their champion pools and how they play, so it's just easier for us to play against them and win against them.
Well, that's great to hear. Second question I want to ask you is, you guys went up against 1907 Fibonacci yesterday, and it was an upset victory for them. You guys lost. What was
off this Cho'Gath, who was able to solo kill Renekton yesterday?
Yeah, that was a little bit of an eye-opener for sure as that happened. And now we continue to see jungle bans from the side of KLG. It's Gragas off the board for Venus. That's been a favorite of his.
Get this jungler out of here. And now we're just trying to deny any sort of power from the Juggernaut composition. Get rid of the big Ardent sensor supports.
Yeah, Lulu, Janna both removed, and Nidalee also banned away by KLG. So the definitely teams sticking to targeting one role on either side.
Yeah, I actually really like the fact that they're giving Venus so much respect. Again, Young Generation are one of those teams that slot in that they like to play more of the...
After the defeat, what were you guys talking about after that loss against Fibonacci?
昨天你们对上了 FB 呢，表现不如预期。那在经历那场比赛之后，你们团队心态如何？那你们做了什么样的讨论跟改变呢？
因为昨天我们打 FB 的时候输了，其实也是蛮意外的，因为有一些我的确定啊，就是我比如说我的珍娜没有玩的预期中怎么好啊，然后我们有一些配合啊，而且跟阵容来说，因为我们阵容只有开团只有大树1个，然后我们其他4个也是没办法开团的，然后对面有5个以上，就是很多的开团，然后可以打我们，所以我们拖到后面的话就很难赢了。
So we were actually pretty surprised that we lost.
So comes to mind.
Yeah, well, once the envelope has been pushed, as you like to put it, he's going to be falling back on one of those. And Lee Sin coming in, we're going to expect some early plays out of that for sure. And it's back over to KLG to round out their composition. What do you see from them here?
Well, we need to figure out where all of these flex picks are going to go. It's obviously not going to be Galio support now that Alistar is being hovered right there and locked in. I love me some Alistar. He's been banned way too much for my preference here. And wow, okay, we needed an Ardent Sensor somewhere, and it looks like we're going to get it in the mid lane.
All right, so Plugo picks up the Karma, and now we get to see the shuffle around as...
Team Comp had like 5 champions that could start a team fight. As for us, we only had one champion, so we were pretty sad that we lost.
We're going to be able to get the rematch later on. 然后我最后一个问题就是，你们有多大的自信，今天能2比0吗？
很大自信，今天一定2比0。
I'm pretty confident we're definitely going to have a 2-0.
Well, that's great to hear, Kevin. Good luck later on. We're going to send it to a very quick break. Back with more games later on.
Will it be too little too late? No, it is not as Reris comes in. First blood's going to be on Tussle. Yutari Mayashi is going to get a knockback. Magalio's right behind him, and even though Evie's there, it's not going to be nearly enough. Even Mission coming in, not needed for the cleanup duty. Can they get the kills off? Godpoint not quite going down. They need themselves a mid laner.
Theoretically, he still doesn't know for sure what he's going to be facing. Right now in the LPL, they're scrimming, or they're playing a lot in solo queue Karma top lane, specifically into Cho'Gath, so that could still be a Karma top.
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty safe bet to just say, forget it, give me Corki, I don't care what I'm up against, I can handle it. So Nocti, he's somebody that can definitely handle a wide variety of things as well, but I think you have to expect that this is where the Galio is going to be.
Okay, but there we go. Now, I talked about the Ardent Sensor. Naturally, it's not super comfortable for Alistar to build that one.
There's the lockdown on the Rumble, and in comes Riris. The gank squad was real. That's a big shield. Baron gets smited on down, and Riris is still holding on to everyone from Rampage.
Here comes Evie.
Riris even claiming a kill for himself, while the rest of the team is bringing up the rear. That's a double kill. That Galio deals some serious damage. Shield of Duran, Ramane stunned up. Scout of the Weekend unified with the last hit, and this is going to be all she wrote for Hong Kong Attitude. This is the start. This team wants to be top 16.
Karma, who can look for that Athene's Ardent Sensor type of build that they've also seen on the Nidalee.
Yeah, and you can tell both these teams are going to be going all in on the global plays, a couple of teleports in the mid lane, as well as, of course, what Galio can get done. We saw a masterclass in that the last time around, but both these teams, very different style of composition, played to a very specific draft phase that they wanted for themselves. It looks like for KLG's side, it'll be all about that Kog'Maw in the later stages of the game, everything built around it, but it does seem a little bit more rounded from YG.
Yeah, I call it, again, bridging points of power. The fact that you have the Lee Sin, he can take over the early game. He's then handing the baton to Corki in the mid game, who then throws it over to Xayah into the late game. It's about where you attack now. Cho is notoriously fragile in the early game. Yes, it's only a Galio, but he is working in tandem with a Jarvan. So I would like to see young generation at least give some respect for Nocti to get out of the danger zone and into where Cho'Gath is pretty much unmovable from his lane.
Yeah, well, Nocti definitely knows a few things about being bullied in the early game. That was one of the ways they were able to find wins in their qualification for Worlds. Just kind of let him sit under tower and survive being wailed on. I wonder if TierWolf decides to take a trip up there all the same. As we load up onto Summoner's Rift, that's always the question when you watch Chaos Latin gamers. Where are they going to send their hyper-aggressive jungler?
Exactly. What is TierWolf going to do? He is the big vocal guy for this team. I've talked a lot to them about what do you guys think is your primary strength, and I get the same answer every single time. Communication. You know, this team, when it was formed in spring, they didn't expect to make it to Worlds. They were just looking at like long-term development, you know, surviving relegations, not falling down again, trying to fix some of the structural problems that they felt were in their team and build them up for you know, not today, but tomorrow. And then the communication started to come together. TierWolf stepped up, Plugo being that veteran in the mid lane, you know, really stepping up his performance, and then everything came together for KLG, and suddenly in summer, they shifted gears and they decided, hey, we can actually go the distance.
Yeah, and here they are on the world stage getting to play a little bit of cowbell. This is nice for KLG to come back from, yeah, as you said, the relegation zone 4 months ago. What a journey it has been for this team to find themselves now in Wuhan.
The redemption story, really, for them, and now not just proving that, hey, this is our first appearance on Worlds, but we deserve to be here. We are the best that this region has to offer, and we can go that distance.
Yeah, story a little bit different, of course, for young generation because, as you said, living perennially in the shadow of the Gigabyte Marines, they want to, you know, find their own identity or at least demonstrate their own identity. Of course, they definitely still subscribe to some of the strong points that the Gigabyte Marines had to offer, but Big Koro is always the one we're looking at as opposed to the jungler. Venus a little bit more on the supporting role.
Yeah, I mean, Big Koro just has this this reputation. Gigabyte Marines coach Tinnakan, I talk a lot to him. He says that Big Koro, he's been working with the player for about 2 years now, is the guy to watch. And this is, you know, the coach that discovered someone like SOFM, discovered Levi's talent, trained those guys up. And he says, no, Big Koro, this is the next big player coming out of Vietnam.
We'll see if he's able to stand up and deliver for sure. Of course, Xayah Rakan, he's definitely set up for success. And we talked a lot about TierWolf and what he can get done early. But facing him down, Venus, Lee Sin, that's what you want to do. That's what you need to do because your effectiveness will wane the longer the game goes on regardless. And you got to think that's what KLG will want anyways.
But it's also about setting the expectations of what TierWolf actually brings to the team. This isn't, you know, a 1v1 dueling-oriented jungler. Yes, he can be that carry. Yes, he is very aggressive.
I've seen a lot of LPL Jarvans over the years.
But it's about how he plugs into his team, specifically with Plugo. The more time that TierWolf is spent roaming around with Plugo, the more time that these guys get unlocked and they're able to, you know, double team either the side of the map or an invade jungle, that's where KLG find a lot of their success. So just watch how TierWolf moves around Plugo and how Plugo moves around TierWolf.
Yeah, for the time being, Plugo, or TierWolf rather, is moving around Venus and is finding Nocti making his way down as Venus says, thank you very much, I'll take the leash on the red.
And unfortunately, that does throw a wrench into TierWolf's plans, means that his jungle's going to be a little bit slower. You can already see him level 2, and he's trying to compensate for that by grabbing the Rift Scuttler.
Oh, Venus might not even let him get away with it here. Level 2 to level 3. Oh, dear.
And he doesn't have his smite, so he can't just turn and burn it. So giving a lot of respect to this Lee Sin pick, which, you know, I like TierWolf. There's no reason to throw away an early game on, you know, a risk scuttler.
Yeah, and they do have very late game, right? This is a Kog'Maw composition. You're going to be building Ardent Sensor on your mid lane. So for the time being, it's okay to see a little bit of early pressure rather than giving up a lot of kills and allowing that snowball to happen.
And Venus understanding that he can do this because he does have the pressure in the top lane, in the mid lane, but maybe his luck runs out.
Yeah, I was going to say, TierWolf says enough is enough.
Hello.
I'm going to fight you this time. It's a battle of double buffs, but I don't know if TierWolf wants to keep going. Plugo wasn't quite in range to respond. We'll check back in with the bottom lane. Fix and Slow already stopped up under tower. We saw a little bit of early game harassment on Fix. He's already healed back up to full, but unfortunately Slow can't say the same.
Talon can be pretty frisky, though, underneath that tower. Does need to be a little bit careful about how that interaction with Alistar is going to work.
Yeah.
You never know if Slow's going to turn on the aggression. He is known as more of a playmaking-oriented support.
Yeah. Although Pallet on a playmaker support of his own definitely can make things happen pretty quickly. That's a nice double knock-up. Pallet's already going to be out. Fix can't really do a whole lot of damage early on, just sitting on the door and shield. And TierWolf is having a hard time, even from Nowell here. Plugo goes in for a little bit of relief effort, but maybe he wishes he didn't.
Yeah, young generation just have TierWolf's number. They understand where a lot of the pieces of KLG start fitting together, that it starts with that jungler, and they are just throwing everything and the kitchen sink into this guy's jungle, contesting wolves, contesting raptors, now looking at stealing his Krug camp. The guy has a family.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're going to go hungry right now. TierWolf does not have much he can do inside this jungle.
It also means that he has a clear gank path down bottom. Now, there's no vision for KLG into that tri-brush, so if Venus retains his health, which he is going to smite, he can feel comfortable looking for a gank behind Ali.
Oh, he might just be able to do it too. They're pushed up.
He's going to walk into Jarvan, though. I think Venus is just going to exit over the wall, use the blast cone to escape.
Yeah, they see him. I was about to say, maybe he'll go for the spicy 1v1, but I feel like that's not going to go well for him with Slow and Fix nearby.
Definitely not with a back on Jarvan.
Yeah, that's fair. He's already got an upgrade. You see the farm differential, of course, because Venus has pretty much been living inside of that jungle for a while, but now his own is going to start setting back up. They see Jarvan hanging around, and of course the ward in the river brush. Back to mid lane. We haven't talked too much about this, but it's already been a decent gold lead built up, or a CS lead built up for Nowell. You see Plugo had already had to spend his flash to just get away from the 2v1 earlier on, trying to save TierWolf's jungle.
Unfortunately, I feel like it is going to be a bit of a free lane for Corki, unless that happens. Here comes Jarvan.
Okay, Mantra Q, TierWolf on the way. There's the slow flag drag and flash away. Nowell turns it back with the Gatling gun, and TierWolf can't get anything else done. But he does take another Inner Flame to the face.
But that's now both flashes down for the mid laners, so ripe for the picking for the junglers, and it's going to be the wash and repeat.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's return ganks, but that is a little bit of a quick turnaround time, and TierWolf can't quite take it, especially not with Nocti hanging around. He even made the trip from top lane.
And that's twice now that Nocti's been able to unlock himself from his lane and add, you know, benefit pressure to whatever his mid laner or his jungler are trying to do, and he's keeping up fairly even in CS.
Yeah, okay. Fix already getting some damage back out onto Big Koro.
Check out the jungle.
Yeah, we're going to get a little bit more action up towards that mid lane, but there's still a lot of auto attacks flying down to the bottom. It looks like TierWolf and Plugo actually kind of got forced back in. There's a lot of vision placed down, and Venus might have wanted to fight that.
But it did force Galio to also respond, which means that Nocti gets even more time alone. He is pushing in a big creep wave, but is retaining the CS lead. Just a little bit of a smidgen of a CS lead.
Yeah, but this is where it starts to happen. The Galio just hits level 6. Now he's got his ultimate available to try and get into those fights a little faster. And that's not something Nocti can quite match. He's got a teleport, but it's not the same.
But that does mean that he's just going to pressure forward, keep the Galio locked in. He also has, you know, multiple ways to disrupt if it does come to a TP off as opposed to a, hero's entrance off.
Yeah, I guess one is only one way. Yeah, I think
Lift off?
I think you could just say standoff, and most people would understand what you're saying, Frost.
No, I'm thinking about like his jump up.
Oh, it is a lift off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you meant matching TPs.
Galio never skips leg day.
No,
His
he
legs are huge.
He's definitely squad goals for sure.
Mantaraya, though, is making use of his roam pressure. He knew that Nocti was back into the base, and so he pressured the wave forward, lost vision, although I think he was spotted out by the ward that he's walking over right now. So young generation should have some idea that he's placed deep vision down around that red buff that will be spawning.
Yeah, they have a lot of river vision of their own, but it's going to be difficult for YG kind of push back, especially in this bottom side. Fix is having a field day, in all honesty. They haven't had a whole lot of jungle attention bot, but the Kog'Maw, you know, that is the late game plan, and he's been doing just fine.
Yeah, and Fix is a big name right now. I think that he's kind of a standout AD carry for his region personally in watching him. The thing is he's very young, and he doesn't quite understand when it's safe to do things. And so sometimes he puts himself in a little bit of questionable decisions. But at the same time, you know, you have to congratulate him of having that bloodthirst. It's pretty hard to train that into a player. You would almost rather that they have it instilled into them and then teach them how to rein back the aggression.
Now, that is exactly the recipe for an AD carry, for sure. Now, Pallet, he's stepping a little far forward, not necessarily respecting what Slow could do. Still only on level 5, so no quickness. And Nocti, he's going to steal away. A little bit of a snack attack on the blue buff there.
Yeah, feeling really comfortable because Null had pressure on Karma. Naturally, the second rotation of blue buff is going to be handed over for Karma. So if she's unable to roam over, it means that it's not being prepared for her. Gives him the go-ahead that, hey, no one's probably here. I can probably just snack, walk away.
Yeah. Hate to eat and run, but apparently that's what he does. Now, Null, back into mid lane, level 8 to level 7 advantage on this Corki. And you mentioned, of course, the free lane. Maybe not necessarily when the junglers are involved, but in the 1v1 situation, it's going to be hard for Plugo to really match, especially when he's going to be building towards that Ardent Sensor.
Hold on.
Tierwolf. Ooh, Sonic Wave. Just a hair's breadth away.
Trying to set up a trap there. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just going to be pushing waves back and forth. The thing, though, is that if Null's feeling confident that he can out-trade or trade around the Karma, that he's going to be pushing forward aggressively and then looking for those avenues when he has package to make roams. And that's when things are going to get explosive for probably this game. I mean, there's so much dive potential. I'm thinking about it. I was like, there's so much dive potential bottom. But like, do you really want to dive in Alistar?
Probably not. I mean, if you get to the Kog'Maw, I guess it's worth. I guess we'll find out as Venus still hanging around.
Barrier heal.
Yeah, that's true. Tierwolf, okay. Oh, he finds Nowl and Venus. Kick back into Pallet. Oh, he thought his own neighborhood was safe, but not anymore.
So the play still stands. They wanted to go bottom. I was questioning if you wanted to dive the Alistar. Doesn't matter if you find the jungler alone on the Krug camp, but the same mentality didn't involve the package, but did get that Corki with the free roam, because again, it's just pushing back and forth in this mid lane, and Corki gets inside track.
And once again, we get to see it. So Tierwolf, a little bit of a hesitation, and well, as soon as he throws the flag and drag in, kick back into the first blood.
Yeah, and frankly, this is just a great read from Young Generation and understanding what makes KLG strong, which is starting with Tierwolf. If you lock him down, you slow down the communication, you slow down one of the primary shot callers of the team, and suddenly they start to flounder around or fall apart.
And this gold lead, and as well as the Dragon, already a little more significant than what we saw the last time they met. Remember, they did build a modest lead in the opening game of the World's Play-In stage, but, well, Gate 3, I mean, but they just didn't really do much after that, and there was a lot of misplays individually.
But a big problem was the misplays that were happening top lane, and that is a completely different story this time around. Nocti is up, what, 20 CS, pretty strong, feeling very confident. He's now at the stage as Shogoth where he's never going to be moved from this top lane. He's going to be feeling very safe, very confident, and all he needs to do is keep tabs on Galio. Have the wave constantly pressured forward, have the vision underneath him so he can do that, and just make sure that Galio's not able to impact the rest of the map.
Yeah, and he's mobile enough to be able to match. Not only does he have the teleport, of course, up and available, neither top laner wanting to pull the trigger on that summoner, but he starts off at finishing out the boots. So he's really able to make a little move faster in the Galio, not quite matching it, of course, and he might not skip leg day, but apparently he forgot to go to the Nike store.
Those are some Pumas. He's an Adidas guy.
Okay, fair enough. But 11 minutes in, we've only got first blood. It's on YG. They've got a lot of tools in their kit, but I feel like the game plan for Chaos Latin Gamers, of course, is always going to be this Kog'Maw, and if he doesn't get shut down, he's happy.
Well, it's also against Azaya, though, especially in tandem with Rakan. This duo will snowball so well into the late game. Yeah, it's hard to match the true range, reach, and damage output of a Kog'Maw, but Zaya gets pretty close.
Not to mention they'll be able to start closing gaps pretty well. And I like what Venus has been able to do, not just in shutting down Tierwolf in this game so far, but in denying him so much farm, getting a whole lot of vision. They can spot out any aggressive attempts from KLG, and they know that there's not going to be a whole lot of aggression coming out of the mid. You got a Karma, the Galio up top is just going to try and push and hold lane, so bottom lane's the only one you really got to worry about.
Yeah, and it's really understanding the fact that there's not a lot of kill pressure there. You know, kind of miss the window to attack the lane, or attack the top side when both those top laners are fragile. You're looking at Rakan or Alistar, so it's not going to feel great to go down there unless you're bringing multiple members, which looks like they're trying to set up right now. So it was just about invading and attacking Tierwolf and trying to isolate that 1v1 jungle matchup.
Yeah, well, they're about to isolate a lot more than that. Corki on the Trinity Force power spike.
Still need to be really respectful and not get overzealous in this. It's still an Alistar. He's got his ultimate, so I think you focus on the tower instead of looking for the dive.
Yep, trying to play the objective focus game. Of course, they're going to bring in some backup as well with Venus still sitting here. He's just going to make the wrap around and trying to get a few more wards in, pinging that they don't see Tearwolf, so they don't feel comfortable going any further.
Exactly that. And you can see the Jarvan was actually backing at the inner tower, so everyone knew it was up. Everyone was kind of testing the waters about what might happen bot lane, but in the end, we don't want to gamble or throw away something on just a risky bot lane dive.
Yeah, this is the development we're starting to see out of YG. I mentioned earlier on in the game that the last time they met, it seemed like the team a little fidgety, a little nervous maybe, not making the right plays always at the right time, but this is a lot cleaner League of Legends. It's much more like we saw up against Fnatic, despite them not being able to pick up the win there. We questioned what type of team would show up on this game. So far, it's looking like the better young generation.
Well, it makes sense that they would slow down a little bit just naturally because of their composition. They're still waiting for, bigger power spikes. Yes, Corki has his Trinity Force, but he wasn't able to utilize the package very aggressively. But right now, it's continuing to exploit the jungle. There's not a lot of opportunity and kill pressure in the individual lanes, but like I said, just keep blitzing into Tearwolf's face.
Yeah, and just keep grabbing that gold lead a little bit slower every time. 2,000 is the lead they have now, and the more you do, the more you starve out the jungler, the better you can actually do once the map starts opening up to try and force those fights, because he's not going to be on the same level.
And the only concern then is that, yes, they didn't give a lot of attention into trying to shut down the Kog'Maw. But if they're confident enough that come the 5v5s or come mid and late game, that, Venus can fly into the back and can find that Kog'Maw, or, maybe Cho'Gath flashes forward and just noms him. There's zero counterplay to that type of maneuver. So it could just be that it's not a bad read from young generation to try to shut down Kog'Maw, but they're just confident enough that if it goes late game, they're better.
Yeah, and when you have a composition that pretty much has one clear win condition, it does paint a giant target on its back as opposed to the multiple tools that young generation have. The Corki's still going to do a serious amount of damage. You mentioned the Cho'Gath. I mean, there's not that many champions that you build full tank on and then just, okay, I'm going to blow somebody up.
It's great to play against.
It's super interactive.
I love the counterplay.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, young generation's other top laner faced that off the last time. Montorayo was the one that had the Cho'Gath, and he started to do that to a Renekton.
That guy should never get Cho'Gath again. It was just disgusting what he was able to output against Ren. Here we go. And no, we don't.
Wash, rinse, repeat. Yeah, I mean, it's what you're talking about, lack of kill pressure, right? Like, you can put the Karma Leash on, but at the end of the day, Noel can just jet off.
Flying out. And slow, he does have Jarvan behind him, so you can already see that he wants to be a bit more aggressive, but trying to pick which target. You want the Xayah, but then Rakan's just going to go in, try to protect her, create space for her.
Yeah. I feel like Fix has got to be a little careful, though. You talked about him being the slightly maybe over-aggressive AD carry, and if he's not behind the Alistar, you might find yourself face first into a Rakan ultimate.
But they need to pull the trigger now, KLG, and make this play happen bottom, because Venus and Null are going to be on the way. They're probably going to shove one more wave and then make the rotation bot. So the window is closing for them to have a numbers advantage here.
Yeah, and the map is opening up right now with that tower knocked down in the mid lane. You can see Null just having a pretty good time, and of course, so far, he's pretty much par for the course in the mid lane. We're starting to see him really step up, especially after their first performance.
I mean, that said, it was frankly an easy matchup for him. He just pretty much did his job. It's now how he transfers that into the mid game, because he is the big power spike. In fact, already he's just like Trinity Force, Infinity Edge. Most expensive build, let's go.
Yeah, and he's even got the boots just to get a little bit extra mobility starting things off. And wouldn't you know, it's 10 seconds and another Infernal Drake. We've really been graced by a whole lot of Dragon RNG this Worlds.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because it's the Rage Blade rush from Kog'Maw, it feels really uncomfortable at this point in the game. Like, the Infernal is spawning, he needs to make his back, and yeah, you can argue that maybe the backs are mistimed, but they don't want to fight this because it feels really bad to fight when you have your AD item, your AP item, and you're just like in between any of those points.
Bit of an awkward time, right? But for YG, he talked about them kind of building up each other and having one of those compositions that sort of, it supports its own scaling. It's a smooth curve up, and it's working perfectly for them right now, and there's not a whole lot of chance to contest, so that's 2 Infernals, 16% bonus AD and AP for the young generation squad.
Yeah, and that's going to be devastating because it is a Corki, it is a Xayah, so that double Infernal will do so much work for them in about, 10 minutes. So any sort of gold lead that KLG might match is just going to be out-ramped by the double Infernal and what that offers in terms of, power advantage. Now, on the other side of that, the next dragon is Mountain, still very valuable. It'll spawn around 22 minutes, and Kog'Maw will actually be in a perfect spot to fight, as well as because the Ardent Censer will be completed by Karma, and he'll also have his second item.
But we will have to see the game state at that point, right? That's still some minutes away, and young generation, I mean, if they can keep this ball rolling right now, this has got to be such a good confidence booster for them, because remember, despite the fact that we saw improved performance from this team over their debut, they're still 0-2 down. They have to win out to have any chance of moving on to the next round, and so far so good, but one mistake can start to turn the tide.
but it's about where those mistakes will happen. You can see, again, Tierwolf, he's been repeatedly down into the bottom lane. I feel like they're just waiting for Big Koro and Pallet to make the rotation towards top side. Again, without Infernal, there's not a lot of reason to be bottom. They probably want to move their objective priority towards that Rift Herald, and he's just trying to catch them out of position so they can use the Jarvan to burn down that tower trade. So KLG understand that they don't want to fight right now, that it's not in their advantage. They just want to try to trade objectives.
Yeah, Mantaraya knows that better than a lot, so seeding off the tower pressure in the top because he knows that the rest of his team, they're in the bottom side. However, there's a teleport coming in. Young Generation, they do want to fight, pulling the trigger, getting the root off on two, and in comes a Corki. It's a special delivery, and I don't think Fix wanted to ring that bell. It's going to be one tower taken down by Venus. Meanwhile, the fight is on 5v4 in the bottom, but YG, they look like they're getting the better of it. One more knock up, but Nocti is not perturbed by that. See, going back in, Inspire, and there's a root on Mantaraya.
Yeah, but they retain their health bars. You know, Kog'Maw wasn't killed, and Galio threatening the dive.
Oh dear, Nocti, he's gonna give it, or is he still staying alive through the root? Gets the eat on Mantaraya, flashes away to the safety of behind the rest of his team, and now KLG in trouble.
And again, I'm not gonna blame KLG. I agreed with what they were trying to do, but Young Generation, they understood we are stronger now, we wanna fight, and it doesn't matter if we fight 5v5 or 4v5. Corki flew in, they forced KLG off the tower, and meanwhile, Lee Sin was able to pick up top tower and Rift Herald.
Yeah, that's got to be a great thing for the jungler. Oh, I'm Lee Sin. I'm supposed to do things early game. I guess I'll just go and play PvE while my team hard carries.
And that's just so unfortunate. Like, if you're a KLG fan, that feels bad because you're like, yes, I completely agree with the team. You know, they're not strong enough to look for the 5v5, so they're going to abuse the numbers advantage and just try to trade tower for tower. But Young Generation are like, nah, man, you are going to fight us and we are going to win. And unfortunately, KLG, you know, it looks good initially. Fix is able to disengage. He's saved. The Kog'Maw didn't initially die. You're like, perfect. KLG are going to get the trade back. But then, unfortunately, Galio just overreaches slightly, and the tower does so much work for Young Generation.
Yeah, I cannot believe Nocti didn't die. Turns around, gets a nom off. I guess at the end of the day, the Cho'Gath just a little bit bigger than the Galio.
Catching, what, 3 members there with his Rupture?
Oh yeah, that too. And at this point, he's not getting any smaller. He's got the Warmogs completed, steals away Raptors. Tierwolf still doesn't own his own jungle. This guy's having a bad time.
He's, what, 68 to 109? It's not fun.
Yeah.
And now the teleport being forced out.
Oh boy, Fix. Yeah, can't really spot him back. Nocti just hanging on and pushing them continually.
But this is multiple members for KLG just trying to pressure Young Generation on the bottom side of that. Meanwhile, the Rift Herald is still in possession of Venus. If he gets this wave prepped and if Xayah and Rakan actually rotated down, you know, they could just exploit other areas on the map while KLG are busy down here.
Yeah, but YG, they find themselves a little bit outgunned. Fix gets 1 kill on the board. That's the first for Chaos Latin Gamers. Nocti, let's see how tough he can hang under this tower. This time, no help is coming, so get in the pit. And looks like Nocti's going to try to buy a little bit of time with his health bar. Fix gets 2, but look what's happening up top.
Exactly, and this is the play that KLG were trying to get. They will get the tower, but like I said, while all of the attention is being pulled bottom, it's just an easy Rift Herald into an inner tower, and they're now sieging into the inhib.
Yeah, much needed gold on the side of Fix. However, they're going to pay dearly for it because Mantaraya, trying to hold on here, finds another Rift Herald headbutting into that tower, and they'll be able to clear it away, but still, that's some serious chip damage that Young Generation have managed to bring.
And still a massive trade-up for Young Generation, particularly around the Baron control. You know, the creeps are going to get that far forward, or that much farther forward down the top side of the map, and now they just need to start moving and creeping in their vision after they take down Mountain.
Yep, grabbing as much jungle as they can on the way out. Making out like bandits. Tierwolf is just finding himself completely starved out this game. Just taking a look at the gold that he's got for himself compared to Venus. I mean, he's down almost 2,000. The man just can't catch a break.
Now, the green light for KLG is the fact that, like I said, the 22-minute Dragon is going to spawn. They are in a much more comfortable position to fight. They've got the 2 items completed on Kog'Maw, the Hurricane as well as the Rage Blade. The Ardent Censer and the Athenes are available for Karma. So before, when they stepped off of the Infernal Dragon, they understood we're not strong enough to fight. Now, this time around, they can feel confident stepping to if they get their vision in place.
It's still not going to be easy, though, because at this point, Nocti is nearly at raid boss status, so I feel like you're going to need more than 1 DPS to take him down, although doing a little damage there. Venus still in for the relief effort, and Slow and Plugo were waiting out in the brush, so a lot of investment from Chaos Latin Gamers up towards the top side. That means no one's there to defend now on the bottom.
And it also means that no one's able to defend this Mountain Dragon. Mountain Dragon, yes, it takes a long time to go down, but he's one of the gentle giants of the Rift, so if Now wants to take this tower, he can just solo Mountain afterwards.
Yeah, pretty easily, and Mantaraya knows he can't really defend against the Corkster. That's going to be 1 shot taking it out, and he just keeps on pushing, actually. Chaos Latin Gamers really giving ground over to Young Generation.
Yeah, might as well. He knows that no one's going to come to stop him. Feels confident because he's got the ward on the Raptor camp, so he can see exactly where Tierwolf is on that Jarvan. And he's just going to continue to be a nuisance.
Speaking of nuisances, every time I think Tierwolf has free jungle, someone steals something from him. This time it's Pallet. Oh, I feel bad for that guy.
He's not getting a lot of gold.
No, definitely
He's fallen on hard times.
Well, there's always next game, I suppose, but for the time being, there's still a lot of chances for KLG to come back into this.
Gold down, Venus.
Yeah. He's clearly still going to be able to help them as far as utility goes and cataclysms and things like that, but for Young Generation, this is the time that they feel pretty confident, even though the Kog'Maw has some kills, has some gold. KLG, they might get collapsed on here, or will it be Young Generation that step too far forward? Pallet, he has to go quick. And it looks like Tierwolf gets the pit on, but it doesn't matter. He's going to be jumping right back. Fix gets one kill to start things off. Now just trying to look tasty as KLG on the chase. Living Artillery, one shot, two shot. Young Generation, there's Big Cora right in the back. Nocti takes down Tierwolf right off the end of it. Looks like two roots down. Slow's gonna have to flash away. Pluto and Fix turn things out. Can they get the damage on Mantaraya? Trying to go for the dive under tower, but it's a shutdown as Big Coro does go big. And as the dust settles right now, it looks like Young Generation getting the better of it. But it looks real tense for a moment.
Yeah, Fix tried to go Super Saiyan, tried to carry his team, but it was really Nocti, and now with that Warmox kicking in, are they moving over to Baron?
Well, they might just do. That's some serious death timers still, even though it's only 24 minutes in. Young Generation, they know they've got the firepower to burn this one down. Tierwolf still 5 seconds from respawn. Mantaraya trying to disrupt, but I don't think it's going to happen. Couple more auto attacks, gets the root. Taunt doesn't really matter. No, even finds the APM to spam his buttons and get himself some swag at the end of that one. So smited down Baron at 24.5 minutes for Young Generation.
Exactly, successful team fight into the Baron, and this is a huge swing of power for Young Generation. We take a look back at the fight. Again, I understand what KLG are trying to go for. They feel strong. They have the Ardent Sensor, they have the 2-item power spike. I understand exactly why they set up for this. It's unfortunate that Fix just can't go the distance, and a lot of that is on Nocti. He arrives later to the fight, but it's the fact of how he uses ultimate. He immediately kills Karma with the silence, then grabs Fix, does huge amounts of damage to him by just chomping on his face, and then zones Pluto and Fix away until the rest of his team is able to show up and clean up the back half.
Yep. Very hectic fight inside of that jungle, but you can see a lot of the difference in itemization really helping YG put things away. Not to mention the couple of dragons. That Jarvan pretty much died at the very end of it from the package Valk wake.
I mean, he's pretty much got cardboard armor, just like duct tape to him.
Yeah. Fortunately, the Demacian coffers are a little empty these days. 25 minutes in, Young Generation rocking a pretty significant gold lead, as well as the Mountain Dragon. Now it's finished up, and it looks like the next lane to push is going to be all of them.
The easiest tower to secure is going to be that last standing inner tower in the bottom lane, which is what Null is setting up right now. I expect that the mid lane will be shoved one more wave, and then the rest of his team will rotate down and join him. And it's simply because it's that much easier to threaten a dive.
Yeah. Despite the fact that Fix is definitely starting to ramp up on this Kog'Maw, he just can't do enough to try and push back Young Generation. Firing now with 3 members and the Baron-empowered minions on the inner in the mid. Down it'll go, 26 minutes on the clock. It looks like YG looking to close this one out soon, and such relief for this team that started out their Worlds Experience 0 and 2. If they can put this one away with a W in the books, they'll be pretty happy that they still have a chance. Now, Nocti taking up 3. Tierwolf jumps the pit, but I don't know if he wants this Thunderdome to go on. Nocti just gets a numb on, and Tierwolf having to back away. Rupture, flag, drag. They will be able to shut him down. Fix has got a 4th kill of his own.
But what did they lose in return? It's the bot inhib tower. It's massive damage on the mid tower, and Venus is like, get out of here.
Yeah. Young Generation not even bothering to fight his fight because they realize that KLG just can't push them back time and again, so base broken open on the bottom as well.
But not breaking one of the inhibs is a pretty big deal for Young Generation. You know, if they had grouped up with Nocti, they decided that they wanted to apply the Baron in every single lane, try to apply so much pressure across map and split up KLG. Makes sense. They are a composition about the Kog'Maw, so they want to be grouped up, but it leads to situations like this.
Yeah, now unfortunately finding himself without a whole lot of allies, trusted that he'd be able to get out of harm's way, and not the case this time around.
Quick, they've killed the Corki, get to the base!
Yeah, tag time! All right, Big Coro and Pallet on the inhib, teleport coming in, and the rest of KLG coming, and I don't know if Young Generation's bottom lane will be able to get out of this one nice and safe, but they realize they might just be able to kill Fix before it happens. That is a lot of shields right there, and I don't know if YG can take this fight as the teleport's about to finish. Nocti comes in, it's a shutdown for Fix onto Big Coro, but it's still a melee in the mid And now Venus working his way through the last few hits of that tower as they decide to turn back in on the fight. Monterrey gets the charm, stun up onto 2, looking for Nocti, and he just keeps tanking everything. Pallet, he's gonna have to swap his way out as he's a little low on the health bar, but there's a front line right there to clear away the rest of this inhib.
With Kog'Maw dead, there is no one to stop Nocti. He can sit there for as long as he wants. I mean, that was just the Lee Sin in the Rakan. He's like, nah guys, we got this. Just keep hitting the inhib.
Big old Cho'Gath, adaptive helm, Warmog's armor, everything. He is very, very difficult for them to kill.
I just love the fact that young generation just like double down. They're like, you know, we could fight as 5, or we could just continue to throw our bodies at these inhibs.
They do like to skirmish. One thing watching this team as they qualified for Worlds, they kind of thrive off maybe pre-planned, but nonetheless very hectic fights that don't always have all 10 members of each team involved.
And again, that makes sense when you look at KLG's composition. You don't want that comp to stand together as 5 and allow them to just, you know, buff up the Kog'Maw with everything.
Well, you saw those shields though, right?
Exactly. If you split them up, then the Kog'Maw becomes that much more fragile, or he's not in position, they don't have the appropriate wave clear, and you can start to pick things off or chip away at the base.
All right, well, they might be able to chip away at a little bit more than Pallet's health bar. Still mobile enough on the Rakan, so the Death Brush not entirely effective, but it does result in burning the quickness. Still, without 2 inhibitors in the top and mid, the third's looking mighty tasty for Young Generation to try and push their way in, and Nell's got another package to deliver.
Yeah, and you can see a lot of the ping, so they're just trying to flood or smother KLG's base, getting all of these Super Creeps waves coming in at the same time that they're contesting this bot inhib.
Yep. Playing it out nice and easy. Close things out. This would be great for Young Generation to try and get a W on the board, give them a chance to still qualify for the elimination stage. It's not but Nexus Towers left for Chaos Latin Gamers. Can they hold together?
This is where we hold them.
All right. I don't see no Pantheon, though, unfortunately. Chaos Latin Gamers are going to have to find something out of nowhere. 300 Spartans might be hiding behind that fountain. We'll see. Nocti getting the knock up. There's the Featherstorm coming out. Few speed ups, but there's no damage. They've already lost 1 Nexus turret. Tierwolf looking for Nowl, but the rest of Young Generation turn forward. Venus gonna get a kick off. Tierwolf gets the Thunderdome on, but it doesn't matter. Nowl is still able to fire over the edge of the pit. Slow going in, gets a knockback, finding Pallet. Monterrey makes a hero's entrance, and that's 1 kill to start off this fight.
Fix
but Chaos Latin Gamers, they've already found 2. Fix is still looking massive right now, but is it going to be enough? Nowl gets Monterrey, and 1 by 1 the protectors fall, and so does the Kog'Maw. A double kill for Nowl, and there's nothing but the base. 30 minutes exact on the clock. Young Generation staying alive and take the win over KLG.
I mean, it was a 20K gold difference in the end, so Fix tried to do what he could, but he just couldn't go Super Saiyan enough as Young Generation just mow over Chaos Latin Gamers.
Now we're going to need a couple more episodes of training montage before that Kog'Maw was going to be able to outscale. What a massive victory for Young Generation. And we've seen this team look a little bit better every single game they've played so far at Worlds. It's a long climb to try and make it to the elimination round, but they might just be able to do it.
And Nocti is a huge upgrade, I feel. Rin really struggled against Monterrey up into that top lane. Nocti had no problems there, built up a CS lead, was able to constantly be applying pressure, diving into the jungle, stealing away the blue buff, executing perfectly in team fights, you know, getting into that backline, denying Fix the big dragon fight that they really needed to turn that game around.
Yep. And it's a little bit of a heartbreaker for Chaos Latin Gamers, and they were looking pretty solid on their first day of play, but it just wasn't quite enough, and now they find themselves in a 1-2 situation.
Yeah, but I feel like that was more of like a draft thing. It's so hard. Chaos Latin Gamers, they don't like best of 5, or they don't like best of 1. They prefer to be in a best of 3 or a best of 5 format. Again, the strength of that team is their conflict resolution, their ability to adapt, and their communication. So in these short bursts, you know, when they get 1 chance, 1 opportunity, and they fall short, that feels bad because they feel like they're not able to exploit their greatest strength.
Well, that'll be put to the test, I suppose, a little bit later today, but all the same, Young Generation flipping it back for these guys. Long climb, but it's looking really good for them at the moment.
Yeah, it's looking great. And again, huge credit to that top laner, Nocti. Yeah, it's just the Cho'Gath, so I'd love to see him on, you know, more champions to see if he can diversify that style, be a threat in more opportunities. But right now, thumbs up.
Yeah, we're going to see a few more chances of that for sure. Now, to hear more about that YG win, we're sending it over to Tracos and the analysts.
Rusty with a quick thumbs up because he predicted correctly. YG coming in strong in the rematch.
Off camera doesn't count.
I wanted to. We didn't get a pregame, Mark. I couldn't actually say it. I thought they were going to
Technically, Mark is right. It does not count. But the first thing I want to jump into is the pick and ban phase because it does feel a little bit like... I feel like there's a clear goal here for KLG. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you have J4 Galio and Alistar, so you have a lot of playmaking tools. You have a Kog'Maw and a Karma, so you have 1 damage threat. And when you have a lot of dive tools and 1 damage threat, you probably want to force plays around that damage threat to get him some kills.
Yep, certainly seems to be the case. Of course, you contrast that to our opponents, maybe a bit more well-rounded. Things do make a lot of sense still on both sides of the rift. One's a bit more one-dimensional, and you'd say that maybe Young Generation's comp's harder to execute upon, but still, they got the victory. They execute on the composition well enough.
And I think the first thing we have to praise is that Nocti does look very solid on the top side of the map. And while he did not necessarily hard carry the game, he also was not a liability, and I think that was a big win for Young Generation.
Yeah, they just needed more stability, generally speaking, and he went up there by 20 minutes. I think he had a 30 CS lead. At one point, he had stolen the blue buff. So overall, he was still a net positive impact on the game, as well as the fact that he wasn't making any mistakes in team fights and things like that.
Yeah, the big thing with Ren as well that we noticed is good and bad player, of course, but he also made these really crucial big mistakes that just outright lost games, where Nocti looked stable, looked solid every time he was caught. He was actually making space for the rest of the map because they were pushing 3 lanes at once.
All right, creating a little bit of space. Well, let's take a look at our first replay. We can highlight, yes, he is kind of a high-risk player, but also feels like KLG trying to play that strategy where they put everything on the bot side.
Yeah, but this is coming 18 minutes in the game. This is super late. They had already accrued massive deficits from the top and mid, as well as the fact that they already lost their mid turret. So they go for this play from a gold deficit. It doesn't work. It's 4v5, and this
Welcome back to Wuhan, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with Naon, the mid laner from Young Generation, after their victory just then. Tell me, what was the difference between this game and the game you lost yesterday?
Chúc mừng em chiến thắng ha. Thì câu hỏi đầu tiên của em á là cái trận chiến này á, nó khác gì với trận đầu tiên mà trận thua của em ở trước KOG?
Trận đấu sẽ khác biệt giữa trận đấu bữa nay và hôm qua thì là do lần đầu tiên góp mặt.
is a terrible situation because up on the top side, Lee Sin is just working down the turret. He's going to grab a Rift Turtle on the back end of this, and KLG just feels so desperate to convert into anything here.
And it shouldn't be a desperate situation for them because it is a 4v5. They've got 3 tanks. They've got the ability to dive these structures, but somehow and in some way the Cho'Gath holds on, flashes out at the last second.
Yeah, I thought he was dead when he flashed out. I couldn't believe he was still alive after all that. He took a lot of damage.
Rakan shielding, baby. Brings him home, brings him home. But I think the big thing here for me here is ultimately, I feel like they could have done this play much earlier in the game on the side of Chaos Land Gamers. Why did it take so long for them to try to force something like this?
I think a big problem was there was a lack of mid pressure. The Karma was losing the matchup pretty heavily. He was down 30 CS, pushed into her turret, and there's this funny.
Nên tụi em đã có phần là hơi khớp và đã có một số lỗi giao tiếp và bắn bích. Còn hôm nay thì tụi em đã ổn định lại và thi đấu một cách tốt nhất.
Yeah, the biggest difference was that yesterday it was our first time ever on a big stage, so we had a little bit of stage fright and have problems with communication and make mistakes in big events. This time we had a lot better composure, so we did pretty well.
And it showed. You guys tore apart KLG. And speaking of that, this is your first time on a big stage, the first time Young Generation have been to Worlds. And already, nobody quite knew who you were coming into this tournament. But after the first 2 games, even though you lost, you're one of the most hyped up mid laners.
Or throw the tether on the Corki Valks away, and then she just goes back to wave clearing. Felt like it wasn't 100% certain on how they wanted to play the matchup. Should they have ganked it earlier? Lee Sin also did a good job tracking J4 in the early game.
Now, I do wonder if the Karma was picked simply because they wanted an Ardent Sensor user for the Cogmore, and they already had the Alistar there, so it was the last 2 picks. And ultimately, I think when you go for the Karma mid lane, yeah, you can still go an Ardent Sensor. Athene's is nice to have the heals, but you need to have a second damage threat. And so I think just changing that up, being more damage-oriented as your Karma, things may have shifted or given more opportunities for the tanks to dive.
And it feels very high.
Là 2 trận hôm qua em thua, nhưng mà sau 2 trận đó thì em được đánh giá là một trong những mid laner hàng đầu của cái vòng play này, thì em nghĩ sao về điều đó?
Lần đầu tiên được xuất hiện tại chung kết thế giới cũng rất là vinh dự. Thì em chỉ làm tốt những gì mình làm được. Thì được đánh giá người đi mid tốt thì em cảm thấy rất là vui.
Yeah, so it was simply an honor for me to be here already. So if I was just to be one of the best mid laners, I'm very happy.
Well, that's great to hear. Finally, just want to get you guys' thoughts, because after that victory against KLG, it's now in your hands.
Look for just that single damage threat in these contexts where we have seen a lot of games be decided in the early laning phase. And the last time they played this matchup, they were at a deficit. So picking something like Karma that I feel like when it's used well is lane dominant and then transitions to a supportive role.
Yet I will say that Chaos Latin Gamers do this to a fault, because this is how they got here from their best of 5 finals. They play one threat compositions. They were just able to win with those locally, and it feels like on the international stage, maybe they need to just reassess that strategy.
It is the case. Well, ultimately, with our next play, we can see that with one damage threat, when he does get pressured out of the fight, very hard to execute.
And this is just a situation where it's a nice setup on the side of KLG, being able to blow a pallet right away, but then they end up chasing the Corki a little bit too far out of the fight, which allows the fact that right now, Young Generation has double Infernal Dragon, double Marksman to start winning this fight.
At worst, you can force a tie if you're able to take down your opponents later on. Are you guys confident heading into this next, or how confident are you guys going into this next match?
Thì bây giờ mình sau khi mình thắng trận này xong thì mình đã có quyền tự quyết. Nếu như mình thắng Fnatic mình vào luôn, đúng không? Nếu như mình thua Fnatic mình có thể đánh tiebreak được. Thì em tự tin trong cái trận tiến tiếp theo hay không?
Nếu như sẽ có trận tiebreak diễn ra thì em tự tin là tụi em có thể đánh bại KLG một lần nữa.
Yeah, if the tiebreak is going to happen, we believe we're going to beat them again.
Well, that's great to hear. Best of luck later on. We're going to send it back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Fish. Interesting to hear. Stage fright, the factor, the reason why we saw such a stark contrast.
I mean, it was visually kind of apparent, but for some people who might not have seen him play before, it might have been like, oh, this is just a bad Syndra player, but then you see the stark difference, like you said, between game 2 and 3 and game 1.
Yeah. Look good overall. Well, next up is, of course, going to be Fenerbahce going toe-to-toe with Rampage. And yesterday, the TCL
chasing the Corki for that final kill. Big Koro is also the member that we have to discuss on the side of YG. The amount of work that he did through all of that fight goes unnoticed until he just flashes forwards and takes apart that Kog'Maw.
You can see both 80 carries, at least in the damage charts, showing up, contributing to the team. And no surprise that the one threat composition, all the damage is on the Kog'Maw. Sadly, not enough to bring home those teamfight wins.
Unfortunately not. A little bit of, like Rusty was saying, a little bit too little, too late in that Dragon fight. Potentially could have won it if it was cleaned up a little bit, but on the same time, Young Generation didn't play great either. They grabbed the Baron off the back of that. It's an easy steamroll from there. Still want to see him clean it up a little bit, though, because they started playing the game of I'm in the side lane, you're in the side lane, they kill one of us. We push on the other side. You don't necessarily need to die when you're trying to split the other team up like that.
Yep, definitely true. Could be cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, maybe play a little more back. They have to come to you anyway to get those objectives. But I think playing aggressively, that is something that I generally like to see, just maybe not so much in this context. But now moving forward, both these teams are tied, 1-2 apiece. They've gone even in the head-to-head matchup, so there's a lot of potential for tiebreakers here. What do you think the adaptation looks like for Chaos Latin Gamers coming into the next game?
I mean, for Chaos Latin Gamers, I feel like it's just reassessing their draft phase. We know that as individual players, they are good enough to get victories against this team that we just watched them lose to, so just reassess that draft.
I think that's the big thing. The single threat is very difficult to pull off. I think it's fine to do if you are well-versed in that playstyle of forcing plays around your damage dealer. So while this comp, I think on paper, is fine for KLG, and the fact that they've fallen behind 2 games in a row versus Young Generation makes me feel like it's very risky to go for because you're not guaranteed to get Kog'Maw ahead.
We're going to have to find out how they adjust. Young Generation picked with their first win of the tournament. Let's see if Rampage over in Group D can do the same. The LJL Japan representatives face 1907 Fenerbahce after the break.
Tierwolf, okay. Oh, he finds Noel and Venus. Kick back into Pallet.
Galio threatening the dive.
Oh dear, Nocti, he's gonna give it, or is he still staying alive through the root? Gets the eat on Mantaraya. This time, no help is coming, so get in the pit. And looks like Nocti's gonna try to buy a little bit of time with his health bar. Fix gets 2, flash away, Pluto and Fix turn things out. Can they get the damage on Mantaraya? Trying to go for the dive under tower, but it's a shutdown. Nocti just gets a numb on, and Tierwolf having to back away. Rupture, flag, drag, they will be able to shut him down. YG can take this fight as the teleport's about to finish. Nocti comes in, it's a shutdown for Fix. Fix is still looking massive right now, but is it going to be enough? Noel gets Mantaraya, and one by one the protectors fall, and so does the Kog'Maw. A double kill for Noel, and there's nothing but the base. 30 minutes exact on the clock. Young Generation staying alive.
dominance within their group, and they're aiming to secure the #1 seed for the elimination stage.
Yeah, I was high on Fenerbahce before they started playing, but I was surprised with how good they actually were. I didn't think they would get an upset on the #1 seed. I just had them at solidly second. So to see this, I guess, really strong performance from them, definitely not dominant, was a pleasure. It was a surprise, and I hope to see that improvement between days.
And I think the biggest standout was the bottom lane. This is not a bottom lane that's known for being incredibly dominant.
Right. I think if you looked at the mid lane, you say Frozen's going to carry. Seems like he has a little bit of extra baggage. The fact that he has to help do some of these communication things with Crash stepping in. So the jungler also on a separate page, and it's the bot lane who's overperforming a little bit in these team fights. That's really allowing them to win this late game. If they can just shore up the early game, then it becomes even easier.
And the early game's always going to be the problem. Even in their local scene, the casters there have said the early game's their biggest problem. They actually said they expect Fenerbahce to 4-0 the group stage if their bottom lane doesn't lose lane. Well, we saw a 3v5 Penta even without the Korean, so perhaps just get through lane, they're good.
It's looking good right now. We have to remember, right now, they need to secure that first seed. That's avoiding Cloud9. That's avoiding WE. Definitely going to be important to do.
I think, yeah, anyone who saw, the first 2 days of competition realized how strong these #1 seeds are going to be. Avoiding that's critical if you want to make it to the actual group stage of Worlds.
Yeah, avoid that and continue the momentum that Crash has seemed to have for himself through his first 2 games as well, because it isn't just that bottom lane Frozen. Maybe not the same performances that we expect from the player, but when he's spending all of his time working with a brand new player and former teammate of his, then it changes the dynamic of the team.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing for me is that Fenerbahce, of any team here, maybe has the most room to improve because they are working with the substitute jungler. With extra time, they can get extra scrims in and find out a system that's going to keep working better and better as they advance through the tournament.
All right, we're going to have to see what they can bring to the table against Rampage. The final match for Rampage starts now.
All right, thank you very much, Dracos. Now, Fenerbahce starting off on the blue side this game. They elect to ban away the Galio, followed up by the Rakan, and on Rampage's side, Kalista Talia off the board.
Yeah, and one of the first times that we've really seen Galio banned away on blue side. So curious if that means that Thaldrun wants to put priority on Cho'Gath, and they don't want to give a champion, a free tank champion into the Cho'Gath that then has more mobility in terms of cross-map plays.
Well, we'll see if that is indeed the case. Now Rampage is back over to them, and they elect to ban the Cho'Gath themselves, so there won't be either of those champions this time around. It seems like both these teams learned some lessons.
Yeah, I could see what you wanted there, and they say no. Thaldrun, you're not going to get one of your best champions today.
Instead, the J4 comes through. Now, we've seen that mostly in the jungle role. We'll see if that continues the way it is. Now, Rampage, they've decided to lock in a quick Kog'Maw here on their side.
But ultimately speaking, or switching gears back to this Jarvan, Jarvan does lose some of his power because he's not being paired in tandem with Galio, and that's really been, everyone's talking about like the Rakan and the Xayah, but there's been a lot of Jarvan and Galio running around the Rift today.
Yeah, it's a serious bromance as well you can't overlook. Now, for Rampage, here's another solid pairing because they've got the makings of a Juggernaut composition.
Yep, you've already got so much added power and benefit. That means that there is more pressure on a hyper-scaling ADC to match that. Tristana certainly fits into that wheelhouse, and I expect that Padden will take his tried and true.
Yep, just lets the timer tick down before he does it, buys the team a little bit more time to think about what they want to do next, and ooh, that would be an interesting one, but I think we're going to have to wait a little while. Frozen's definitely contemplating quite a few picks.
I'm excited about all of these picks, though, that have been flashed forward. I would love to see another Cassiopeia take the stage. We have seen a couple of different build iterations coming out and playing so far. Yes, her twin fangs got hit a little bit, and that does start to stack up, and as I say that, he's like, nope, right turn. We need that Ardent Sensor.
All right, so this time, we got the Karma all locked in, but of course, that can still be down in the bottom. We saw it in mid lane last game, but that was a very different type of game that we're probably going to see here.
And again, theoretically, it could still be a top Karma. I expect that it's probably going to flex between Frozen and Japone. But again, it's providing that Ardent Sensor for Tristana, which could theoretically fill up more of an all-engaged champion. Alistar slipped through the bans here. And as I say that, they're like, nope, get that guy out of here.
Yep, and of course with the Shen locked in for Rampage, we've got a lot of protection on that side as well. Alistar banned off, as you said, is back over to Fenerbahce. We'll see what they decide to remove. Still needing mid lanes for Rampage.
But my concern is that Rampage could fall into the exact same hole that we saw KLG fall into just last game, this idea of only having one viable damage threat. So I would like to see them pick up, a strong mid laner to complement this composition, because while Kog'Maw can certainly go off, Rampage have been A, having difficulty getting there, and then B, if the Kog'Maw dies, they've got nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, I mean, they could put like Ramadan, something like a Corki maybe, a little bit more mixed damage, allows them to kind of survive just about any laning phase. But you talked about the Cassiopeia, maybe that's the time to bring it out. We've seen a lot of rising up, pardon the pun, and maybe that's the choice.
Yeah, I'd like to see a Rise. I agree with Mark C. what he said yesterday, that I'm not quite sold yet if Rise is going to take the place of Cassiopeia, but I just love the playmaking potential that that champion offers teams.
Yeah, it allows them to really do a whole lot of things. It's one way to also move the glass cannon that is Kog'Maw. Maybe you want to get behind everybody and bring the Lulu along for the ride. There's definitely going to be a lot of mobility if they elect to do it, but that's a lot of theory crafting. Meanwhile, the bans are still going hot and heavy. Orianna, Lucian banned away from the mid lane.
But there is a lot of respect being given over to mid lane right now. You're taking away his Lucian, taking away the Orianna. He's now hovering the Syndra. I do like this. Like I said, I want more damage coming out of that mid lane, so not everything is on Yatori's shoulders.
Yeah, give Ramane a chance to shine. And remember, for Rampage, this might be the last chance for them to really get a win on the board. They can't really progress any further at Worlds, but this game definitely for pride right now, and they're going to be going all out, taking it very seriously as always.
And you know, that's the big thing. The LJL, they're one of the smallest regions in the world. They play very few games domestically, so it's a big deal for Rampage. You know, 3-time consecutive title holder of the Japanese domestic league, to get to Worlds and to just get that score. You know, just carve one in the win column.
Yeah, and if they can do it against a team like Fenerbahce, who were able to upset Hong Kong Attitude, well, that's going to be a pretty big statement for the LGL squad. Now, Fenerbahce lock in the rest of their composition, the Gragas for the jungle, maybe the top, I suppose, as well as the Cassiopeia.
And it does mean that it will be a Karma support, so I'm glad to see Cass. Again, we've seen multiple different iterations of the build. We've seen Cassiopeia's going towards the Rod of Ages to try to compensate and building up more AP as opposed to more of the defensive build, since she did lose a lot of power on that Twin Fangs. It does stack up over time, so we'll see and keep track of what direction Frozen goes.
Yeah, final lock-in, of course, on the Rampage side was the Lee Sin for Tussle. So he'll be trying to make something happen, probably in that mid lane early on, but I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a few plays down towards the bottom. A few tools in the kit of Rampage.
But again, Rampage have been progressing and developing their draft over time from day number 1. Again, it's building in or bringing more viable options for them over the course of this game. Now they can make plays with the Lee Sin, with the Syndra. Think of how strong that level 6 is, or the ability to walk in and do whatever you want in the jungle, as well as then have the late game insurance policy of the Kog'Maw. So I like the adaptations that Rampage have made. It's clear to me that they understood what went wrong for them yesterday, and they're trying to build and fix that today. And yes, this is only a Pride match for them, but Pride means everything.
It certainly does, and it's going to be a very tough test for this Rampage squad up against the hitherto dominant Fenerbahce, 1907 Fenerbahce that is, and you got to look at Crash, man. This guy's been stepping up pretty epic, so going into his jungle might be a little dangerous.
Yeah, I would definitely try to stay out of Crash's way right now. He's had very impressive steals to keep 1907 Fenerbahce in it, and speaking of keeping them in it, it's pressure on right now to win here so they can stay in time with HKA. You know, they want to take first in their group. They want to upset things and dodge one of those other power regions coming into the best of 5, so they need to start here.
We'll see if they're able to do it. We're loading up onto Summoner's Rift for the Game 3 today. Fenerbahce not lost a game just yet. They don't want to start now.
And a lot of eyes for me, yes, it's on Crash and kind of the way that he dynamically changes the style in contrast to someone like Move, who is a bit more of a control-oriented jungler, you know, a bit more of the back pocket safety net for Frozen to allow him to do what he wants. But a lot of focus for me is actually on Thaldrn. I think he's quietly had an amazing play-in so far. I think he is so pivotal and key to a lot of the success that 1907 Fenerbahce get, and particularly how he sets up team fights. And on a champion like Jarvan, he's empowered to do that so much more. Keep focus on how this guy is moving around once the towers drop, come mid-game, come late game, and the fights that he sculpts or how he sneaks in behind teams.
Yeah, we're talking about where Tussle might make plays in the early game, in the mid or in the bottom. Do you think he maybe wants to try and shut down Thaldrn? They've got a taunt available with Evie up top.
Exactly. It's the fact that when you have a Lee Sin and you have so much hard CC in both your top as well as your mid lane, that you kind of have the pick of the litter about where you want to attack and where you want to blitz. For me, though, it's still a lot of focus on Frozen. He is the primary carry of 1907. I know I just built up Thaldrn, and I really like what Thaldrn brings for the team fights, but in terms of laning dominance and laning strength, Frozen is an absolute monster right now. And on a lower mobility champion like Cassiopeia, if you hit the Scout of the Week, the guy's not running cleanse, you know, he has the heal, so there is a weakness to exploit there.
It's very confident of Frozen, too, to just run that heal. And starts out popping out the bushes and sending some Twin Fangs of flying. There's a few more already, and even with those nerfs, the Cassiopeia still doing damage early on. Ramane finding that out the hard way.
I also respect the skin. You know, we've seen a lot of the internal Cassiopeia running around, and it's not my favorite thing to look at. So
it's a little strange, to be honest. Kind of a scary, off-putting skin.
It's a little bit
more classic here.
Decepticon for me.
Yeah, that's the way of things. Oh man, Frozen's already starting off with the bully. Ramane might have to hit that heel a little sooner than he'd like to.
He's like, guys, didn't we just nerf Cassiopeia? Why is she still able to do this? The key thing, though, is to watch how Frozen is using his Twin Fangs to make sure that he's picking up the CS, so he's getting the mana return. The thing about low-level Cassiopeia, you know, level 1, level 2, is if she does try to go for these early all-ins, if she's not paying attention and doesn't get the mana return, she can actually just run out of mana and not have enough to burn you down.
Right.
So it's about trading the damage, but also making sure that you are taking care of your wave properly.
And maybe not pushing up nearly as far as he could be, because that makes it easier for Tussle to try and push him back, and he's a little low on the health bar. We saw some cheeky trades down in the bottom side, and in fact, Padden's actually moving a little far forward just to get a ward inside the jungle.
Yeah, really
of Rampage.
Respecting the fact that Tussle did start topside. They know this because they saw Kog'Maw and Lulu come into the lane. So just giving respect that Lee Sin's probably hanging around. In fact, he's going to get underneath them anyway through the try.
Oh boy. Level 3 on the Lee Sin, not going to go for the Krug camp. Instead, it's the long wraparound.
Oh, he's thinking about it. He's like,
oh,
they're so far forward, but...
Takes the blast cone, waiting out.
The problem is where the wave came in. I bet if that wave hadn't set in, he would have just run in. But now that it's set, now he feels like he has a good angle to look for this Q.
Yeah, trying to bait with the Torimayashi. Instead, they turn their attention over to Yapone, knowing that he can't get the jump away the same way Padden can, and that's just down to half the health bar. It's all they could do for now.
Yeah, Tussle was looking for the fadeaway Q, held onto it, made sure that he tapped Japone last with it, but unfortunately, you know, maybe 1 or 2 more auto attacks and he would have felt confident pulling the trigger, trying to get the flash there, but good response from 1907 Fenerbahce's bot lane to respect, pull back, not lose any summoners.
Yeah, Tussle might have the chance to do that again, though. Of course, he's got some vision down inside the jungle, one of them just expiring, but the other already standing strong. Now, Frozen and Ramane still doing it, but it's a little bit more even than it looked earlier.
Yeah, Frozen did kind of duck out, lost control of the creep wave, but that's fine. He's just going to sit back, pick up this big wave. I want to talk about Crash right now, though. He saw that Tussle was on the bottom side. That gives him the go-ahead to recognize that Lee Sin's not going to be on this side of the map and steal away a free Krug camp. And because Tussle didn't also take the camps, he went for the gank instead. This will give him a bit of an edge, and you can see that in the CS already.
Yeah, setting Crash ahead on the game, and we talked about making early plays. Of course, Crash has kind of been his calling card. Pretty much plays all game long since he's been subbed in on this team. See what he's able to get done. Looking at the top side, Evie might want to watch his back.
Yeah, there were a couple of pings. I was curious if maybe Evie... Oh, hold on.
Holy moly, we've got a fight on our hands. It was heal for heal. Ramane, Frozen both low on the mana pools, man. These guys just want to have a slugfest.
But the problem is that Frozen's wave is about to push forward into the Syndra. So Syndra's still feeling comfortable being this far forward. And he's also pulling Tussle here.
Yeah, speaking of comfortable, he knows that there's no counter vision available. Of course, Crash here on the chicken camp means that Frozen is not going to have to worry too much about being dove because there's relief coming in if it would happen. Instead, no more aggression for the time being. Decided to both pull some punches, and Ramane's got free farm in the meantime.
Yeah, but he will have more of a delayed back. I was actually curious. There's a trick that Jensen likes to do where when the wave comes to him, he actually pulls it off into this side brush so he can get a nice freeze and then force the enemy mid laner to not take the back and then open up, you know, kill pressure there. But unfortunately, he just lets the wave push into him and says, that's fine, we're just going to deny, you know, 2 CS.
Yeah. Speaking of the wave right into him, Valdrin got taunted up into the wave of minions that Evie is starting to push up towards him. Of course, he should be able to absorb that without a whole lot of trouble. But this is one of the things that Shen can do in the early game, bully a little bit, just by virtue of having that taunt.
But he will have his level 6, and it's not necessarily the bowling in the 1v1 that I'm concerned about. It's about how Shen or Evie is going to impact the bottom side of the map. Now, Yutori and Dara have been pushed in pretty much the entire time. That makes sense. They're against Tristana and Karma, and what that does is then allows Crash to do plays like this, where he just gets right in your face, starts contesting things for the Wolf Camp. But if Tristana and Karma continue to be overextended, there is an opportunity where maybe Tussle gets down there with the Shin, and they try to, you know, flip the tables on this over-aggressive bot lane.
Yeah, and it's dark in the river for the time being. We saw already before that Padden was able to get a bit of vision out inside the jungle to try and track Tussle, even if he went for the long wraparound. Now, Japone's managed to do it, but Tussle still has a lot of opportunities to go in there.
Yeah, but 1907, like you were talking about, Fenerbahce have just had such great vision control. You know, they're constantly creating space and creating safety for Padden and Japone to be that far forward, to continue to apply pressure to Yutori and Dara underneath their tower.
Yeah. So while things kind of settle just for a little while, it's only the slim gold lead for Rampage. We've only seen the first couple of backs out of both teams, and it does seem like we're settling in for a much longer than one that we've already seen today for Oscar, and I feel like both teams are pretty confident that their late game scaling is pretty strong.
I agree with that. You know, Rampage have said it themselves that they feel more comfortable. They like to play more of kind of a conservative, patient, slow style. They like the 5v5. Their composition certainly helps build that up. Again, it's really about the Kog'Maw. It's about how the Shen and the Lulu are able to work around him and then just playmaking opportunities by Syndra and Lee Sin. And on the other side, 1907 Fenerbahce pretty much have the same thing. Yeah, Frozen's a really strong laner, but Thaldrn just offers so much for this team when they do start skirmishing, when they do start 5v5. And so I agree with you. I think everyone's, you know, buckled in and feeling fine to feel this one out slow, take it steady, and just hope that they scale up better.
One man who may not be quite so content sitting back is going to be Tussle. He's had to fight for some of his own jungle farm this game, but not for lack of trying to gank on the map. Just hasn't found the results just yet. You can see, though, a lot of vision inside of the Rampage jungle. 1907 Fenerbahce have definitely been not slouching on making sure they keep eyes on everything Rampage are doing.
And that's a lot of credit to Crash. In fact, he's now opening up an opportunity to gank this mid lane, and this is where I wanted Rampage to really focus attention as here they go.
Okay, Scout of the Week, that might just save his life. However, the barrel comes out.
Cask.
A little bit too late, dodged by Ramane, and it's first blood on the 1v2!
Oh, here comes Tussle.
Oh man, this just turned right around. 1907 Fenerbahce thought they had the inside track, but Ramane gets the kickback onto Crash, but he might just steal the doom of his mid laner. No, it's a Shen shield. And what a play for Rampage.
And that's exactly what needed to happen for this Rampage squad. You know, they've been sitting back, they've been playing patient, but 1907 Fenerbahce just super overreach here. It starts out good. The Scout of the Week delays Frozen from immediately following up on Crash here. He then whiffs the Cask, and it's just an ultimate trade, but Cassiopeia is the one that goes down. And then here comes Tussle with the impressive Insect.
Oh, what a play right now with a flashback. I guess he got the cheat on it, but still.
Yeah, he gets the animation. You know, it's one of those things where in the windup of the Dragon Rage, if you flash in the middle of it, you can change direction, and that's what kicks him back into it.
Yeah, but Rampage, that is some much-needed gold in their pockets. One for the jungler, one for the mid lane. I got to give some serious props to Ramane, though. That was a bad situation, and he made out like a bandit.
Now, the opportunity here is that 1907 Fenerbahce could just look for the same play on mid lane. Syndra doesn't have flash. Frozen still retained both of his summoners. The thing is that they're just waiting on the cast to come back up. So there still is opportunity to turn this mid lane back in their favor.
Seems for the time being, they're a little bit more preoccupied on the swap up top, and that means that no one's there to defend the bottom side. So Yatormayashi is getting free hits on the tower alongside Dara. Thaldrn is actually nowhere near this right now. He's still sitting on Fountain.
Normally when we see teams look for this lane swap, it makes sense against the likes of Shen, because when that ultimate becomes available, you just want to try to deny it. Unfortunately, though, we've already seen the ultimate go down mid lane, so it is just trading one for one. But advantage to Rampage is they get it first.
Yeah, they were there a lot quicker on the draw, and even with a little help from Tussle, they're able to get it done. So 9 minutes and 50 seconds into this game, just shy of the 10, Fenerbahce finding themselves without any kills, without any towers. It's going to change in just a minute, but Rampage aren't done on this bottom side. Yatormayashi on level 6, he's got living artillery, and they can keep on pushing.
Yeah, but with Jarvan there, they do need to be careful. Someone is going to have to respond to Padden and Japone up into the top lane. Gragas is also being pulled up there.
Okay, we might be in for the good old double tower trades. Yeah, Rampage, they're the ones who've got one leg up. There's only a few more minions left, but they've got more than enough damage to finish the fire off, and it looks like Evi's not even going to try to go and defend. He's going for the mid lane. They want to dive it here.
Yeah, and Rampage are making it very clear that the mid lane is what they want.
All right, Scout of the Week. The Unleashed Power's on top of Frozen. They push him back, and it looks like Ramane is going to make it out by the skin of his teeth.
Again, these guys, yes, they come from a tiny region, but they are 3-time winners, consecutive splits in their region, and they are trying to play for pride here. There's nothing on the line except for the name of Japan.
And you've got to be sweating a little bit right now. If you're 1907 Fenerbahce, remember every single win counts. They might be 2-0 on the board, but Hong Kong Attitude, they already came out swinging earlier today against the same team, and you start dropping games like this, you may not walk away with that first seed.
And Ramone, already 100% kill participation. Yeah, it's only 3 kills, but 11 minutes and on a Syndra, that is going to matter. Next Dragon will be in the Infernal. It'll be spawning at 17 minutes, and the power spikes will start to come in for their composition.
All right, here was that play once again. Started off with Frozen, getting the Petrifying Gaze off, and then he flashed forward. And Evi and Ramane managed to just have enough damage left in the tank to finish him off.
Even with Syndra tanking the tower right there. So Frozen did what he could. Unfortunately, he didn't have, you know, the appropriate backup to punish Rampage being so aggressive underneath that tower.
Yeah, really nicely played. So gives them a 2,500 gold lead with towers traded up top and down bottom. The map is open up in a bit of a lopsided way, but Yatormayashi and Dara, they're on the wrecking crew here. Gonna make it 3 for 3 on towers.
Yeah, their responsibility is just picking up the global gold and picking up the farm. Syndra is definitely online right now, has the completed item, but poor little Kog'Maw, he's still in between a lot of his items. Looks like he's looking for that Rage Blade rush, already has the AD, so prioritizing that over the AP so he can continue to shove down these structures.
Yeah, and I think 1907 Fenerbahce, realizing they can't respond to it in time, just decide to trade and mirror once again, so there's going to be a lot of global gold coming in for both teams for a little while. However, there's not a whole lot else being able to take that the teams can take on the map, except perhaps the Rift Herald. This time, Evi's here to actually defend, but it's 1v3.
And while we are playing out in the side lanes, we still need to give a lot of attention to this mid lane. Frozen is just trying to play damage control and keep them from snowballing further on that, but he's playing without a flash, he's playing without a heal, and you saw that Syndra and Lee Sin actually spent a lot of their time looking for another opportunity to punish Frozen and not moving down bottom immediately.
Yeah, Tussle's not always been the first to a lot of these fights, but he's certainly been the one putting them away, so far, props to this Rampage team with nothing on the line but pride. They're showing a rare form here. Frozen, he's got to dodge those balls.
I mean, it helps when, you know, kills are thrown into the meat grinder.
For sure. Yeah, game's definitely gone a little bit more chaotic than we might have expected from the first few minutes.
But Rampage do need to respond to this. 1907 Fenerbahce have spent, what, 3 waves down here? And poor little Evi is just assist ping, guys. Hello?
Team?
Team?
He's the only one with the teleport, unfortunately, so there's not much anyone else can do.
Yeah, issue is that Yutori's on the other side. You know, he's just trying to hoover up a lot of this farm, get to that item breakpoint for Kog'Maw, but without Tussle moving over because he's, you know, hunting around mid lane, Evi just has to watch his tower fall for free, and gold lead shifting, you know, slightly better in favor of 1907. They were farther behind, but that's certainly going to help a lot.
Yeah. It does seem like Rampage are focusing all their energies up towards the top, trying to get a lot of control out. There was a Rift Scuttler fight that Tussle ended up winning at the end of it all, and should be able to secure themselves up that... Oh, hold on a second. As the Rift Herald was started,
this is
like Thaldr was checking into it.
Really dangerous, though. 1907 Fenerbahce should feel fine to contest this. They have the completed Infinity Edge on the Tristana, so they feel great to start a 5v5 right now.
Oh, everyone's coming in. And not to mention, they've also got the Ardent Sensor. Oh my goodness! Japone gets the steal out on the end. They can't quite pick up the Eye of the Rift Herald, so Rampage decide they want to take the 5v5 fight right to him, but they're getting a little bopped around. Crash starts it off with a party barrel to kill Evi, and Ramane, isolated from the team, has to flash back into him. Gonna stay alive for now.
And now it's inside track for 1907 Fenerbahce on the mid lane, and that's gonna help huge in setting up this Infernal Drake. The big story was the difference of the 80 carries. Again, the completed Infinity Edge, whereas Kog'Maw is in between items. And someone needs to grab that.
I don't think Thaldrin remembered to pick up the Eye. But they got mid lane on the mind.
That's fine, I guess. Huge move from Japone, but they still need to grab it.
Well, we'll see if they end up going back around. Sometimes you leave your house without the keys, sometimes you leave the pit without the Rift Herald.
Oh god, did I leave the stove on?
Let's see this one again. What a steal that was.
Yeah, the fade away from Karma. And again, I love the fact that 1907 Fenerbahce understand that they're strong enough. You know, Thaldrin's over there just scoping the situation out. There's the steal on the Rift Herald. And then, like I said, it's a story of 2 80 carries. Padden just has his power spike right now, and Kog'Maw doesn't. Yutori's just not putting out the same damage, and Syndra's trying to do what she can, but when she's against, you know, the entire team, it's not much.
Yeah, I think Rampage just got a little too big for the britches right there, trying to force the fight out, and unfortunately end up giving away a kill, losing out on the Rift Herald. At least they didn't give it away because Fenerbahce forgot to grab it.
Yeah, so the Rift Herald has gone bye-bye. No one has it. Maybe they just wanted to retain the trinket.
Maybe.
Let's think about the positives here.
All right.
Now they can use their sweepers.
That's a way to spin it.
They can place the trinkets. Mate, I'll spin it all day. I cast the LPL.
Well, I guess you got to do sometimes. But okay, I mean, we just got a proof of concept that 1907 Fenerbahce can definitely take on 5v5 fights. Padden's got the Infinity Edge, as he said. Even Frozen's starting to dish some damage.
It is different, though, because Kog'Maw now has a completed item in the Rage Blade as well.
Oh, that's true.
Like you said, the Ardent Sensor, and Lulu, level 8 will be closer to level 9, so having 5 points in her shield.
Okay. We'll see what Rampage end up doing. Of course, this game just got a little bit less certain for them. It's 1 minute until that Infernal Drake we were talking about earlier is going to spawn up. But the tempo advantage is in 1907 Fenerbahce's favor, especially in this mid lane. The dual lane is going to back, though.
Is it in the mid lane?
Not anymore.
I was going to say, we could check in on the itemization for Cassiopeia, because we did have questions. You know, some of the Cassiopeias have gone more towards the Rod of Ages to try to compensate for the AP adjustments. This is the more traditional Cassiopeia build, so Frozen staying pretty tried and true there. But he knows his responsibility. I'm supposed to sit next to Padden, hold his hand, and I'm on babysitting duty. You can't come get my Tristana if Cassiopeia is standing right next to her.
Yeah, a little bit different on the Rampage side since Ramane was the one that started ramping things up. And of course, he's still in full Syndra threat mode. But as this game goes on, we will start to see that Kog'Maw emerging as the threat. With the Guinsoo's Rage Blade already picked up, he's, as you said, going to dish a bit more damage as well. But Rampage seemed to have stabilized after losing out on the Rift Herald. They got pushed up in the top, trying to hold on in the mid. And Ramane's down in the bottom, so really nothing's pushing the way of 1907 Fenerbahce but the Dragon Zone.
Yeah, they've lost, Rampage have lost complete control over the Infernal Drake, so still not feeling confident enough. Maybe waiting for 2 items, you know, maybe that Hurricane on Kog'Maw before they really want to step toe and contest. But, you know, giving away a free Infernal never feels good.
No, that's definitely not what you want, especially when you're going to be playing a scaling war. Extra AD and AP for all the champions on the side of 1907 Fenerbahce.
So the thing is that by the time the next Infernal Drake spawns, Kog'Maw will have his big 2 items completed, so they'll definitely feel comfortable. The race is now on for Padden, who, as the Tristana, is a bit more dependent on kind of the 3-item power spike versus just the 2, especially when looking across at Kog'Maw there. So I feel like this next 6-minute window, Kog'Maw's totally fine. He's going to hit it no problem. There's a bit more pressure and time sensitivity to Padden and how much farm he's going to pick up in that time.
Well, he's halfway there, and I think that the critical thing is that
they're living on a prayer.
Always, apparently. You just completely made me forget what I was going to say. Thaldrun, that's it.
Whoa!
It's not karaoke time yet, Frosk. We're going to do that a little bit later. Thaldrun is going to be able to get involved in these fights. As you predicted at the start of it, this Jarvan, the playmaking champion, he's got a lot of damage to bear as well. And I feel like they can kind of sit him on the sideline because the TP is always going to be available to get involved in the 5v5.
And Thaldrun is incredibly important in Rampage's composition because it's about the Kog'Maw. And if you can get that backline dive, guess who's responsible for that? They have the Gragas cast, they have the Cataclysm, so they have the tools to isolate, knock Yutori out of position and just pop him like a balloon. So now all eyes need to be on Thaldrun and Crash about how they get that Kog'Maw out of position.
Yeah, and Crash, you know, after a little bit of an early oopsie, he's definitely stabilized. That last fight was pretty effective to kind of shut down what this Rampage team was doing, but he does face check right in to Tussle and Ramane. Not a whole lot of damage dealt. He was able to face tank through most of it. Thaldrun, meanwhile, heading down towards this bottom side where Evi's shoving away at the mini-wave.
But this is just a scouting mission. 1907 Fenerbahce aren't looking for a fight here. Yeah, if they can pick someone out of position, it's going to feel nice, but it's about the vision game right now. You know, they're setting up for the Baron that's spawning in 39 seconds. Crash does need to be a bit respectful, though. His team's not as close to him as he might think.
Yeah, that's the one thing about trying to set up for Baron vision. If your jungler ends up getting taken out right before it spawns, that's usually not a good sign. Still, a lot of control inside this jungle. 1907 Fenerbahce not loosening their grip at all. Despite a gold advantage for Rampage, they of course just lost track on their own.
And in fact, the only thing that I wish that they would do right now is actually get a back in for Japone so he can pick up more control wards to really secure this Baron, because that seems to be their next primary objective.
Well, might get something for it before, though. 1907 Fenerbahce looking for the tower on the inside, however.
But it's really hard to break this structure into a Syndra and a Kog'Maw unless they find a good cast. There's so much wave clear on Rampage that I feel like they can hold this for a long time unless 1907 feel confident enough to either look for a dive or something crazy like that. I wouldn't recommend it, but you know, pushing forward like that, I didn't think it was the best use of their time.
Especially how important it is for them to pick up a win here against a team that they were able to dominate pretty effectively earlier on. You cannot afford to drop this right now when Hong Kong esports are hot at their heels.
Yeah, but here they go. So they've recognized. Like I said, I just wish that they wouldn't have pushed forward and looked for the chip damage. I wish they would have prioritized getting the back for Japone, particularly to pick up control wards, which he's picked up boots.
Well, I mean, that helps him to get faster back to the team. So he can then back faster to get control wards.
That's like the classic LPL back. I can't kill anyone with a control ward, but I can kill them with a boot.
He upgrades his Sightstone at the very least. So he's got, you know, a few more tools in his arsenal, but still a very close gold game right here at 21 minutes in. But Rampage, they've definitely been on the back foot for the last 4 or 5 of them.
But they keep pinging back to this Baron now. They already have a control ward on it. Thaldrun's trying to create a pressure point bottom, see how many people he can get to respond to him. And 1907 Fenerbahce are just throwing everything mid. And we might just hold this until Fenerbahce feel confident enough that they've caught Rampage out of position. But speaking of out of position, hello?
Yeah, Frozen, he's got to slither away real fast, but Tussle flashing forward, bringing the Shen to the party. That might have been overkill, but Evie is able to finish the job. Tussle shakes the stone right off. Down goes the Casio.
Unfortunately, just some miscommunication there about, who was holding what pressure point. Thaldron had made his back, so there was no one keeping tabs on Shin. And unfortunately for Frozen, he didn't have the necessary vision underneath him to secure that. And now another flash burn by Japon.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Rampage, they're finding themselves a little more emboldened right now and pinging in the area of the Baron. Frozen's still down for 15 seconds. That's the primary carry of this team.
And you can see the assist pings immediately going on to the Baron. Rampage, I think that they should actually just pressure this mid lane tower, though.
Looks like that's what they're going to do, but the junglers found each other out. Now Padden has to rocket jump away. Yutori Mayachi was unleashing the Gatling gun of this Kog'Maw. They're just going to keep on top of it with the mini wave coming up to size. Frozen's just spawned up. He's going to have to slither real quick to try and save his tower.
And that's still just a one-item Kog'Maw. He hasn't completed what looks like a Wit's End sitting in his inventory and already putting out ridiculous amounts of damage.
That's not going to be easy for 1907 Fenerbahce to try and shred through. So all of a sudden, Rampage finding themselves a little bit more swagger in their step, but 1907 trying to push things in. Still difficult to do. Padden does have that static shiv to pair up with his Infinity Edge, so we're 2/3 of the way towards that Tristana power spike. However, we'll see what they're able to get done here. Another Infernal Dragon spawning in 40 seconds.
Yeah, but this is now when teams really need to make their backs if they are going to look for those last-second buy opportunities.
Might be in for a fight here. Tussle does tank a little bit of poke damage. Frozen is nowhere to be found here. No way for him to get into this fight. So if the chase is on, no, it doesn't look like it. Everyone's backing away.
Are we going to continue to hold this?
Ramane did not get the memo. Oh, he's going to burn flash.
Huge ultimate down, though. Yes, the Syndra uses the flash, but there's no longer any cask as the Infernal Drake will go live in 12 seconds. But at this point, 1907 Fenerbahce are like, no one is backed. Just chunk the health, get the Lee Sin out of here. We're going to turn and immediately burn the Infernal. But in response, Rampage are just rushing towards the Baron. They know that 1907 Fenerbahce are on this dragon.
And there's no way they can contest it going down oh so quick, but V-line right now, Rampage going for this Baron, actually trying to just ping to go to the mid lane instead. They want to take a fight.
The indecision here.
Oh boy, setting up for a death brush. I don't know if this is advisable.
They're stacking the orb, so the Cinder damage will at least come out big.
They saw that ward come out. Game's up.
Yep, they call the bluff, and they're just going to push mid. So Rampage, a little bit indecision on the Baron, although as I say that, they're moving towards it now.
Let's see if they can get it. The tower is nearly set to fall already. The minions are going to do the rest of the work, and the rest of 1907 Fenerbahce coming to bear, crash around the back of the pit, but this Baron's not nearly low enough. Can they turn for the fight? Thaldron, that is a big shield on top of him, and he flag drags in, goes for the dome, and Ramane's going to fall to start things off. Frozen cleaning him up off the back of it. Yutori Mayashi knocked up to the high ground, but he's not able to get anything else done. It's a 2-for-1 trade.
But that's still inside track for 1907 Fenerbahce. They will get this mid lane tower. It is pretty much on its last leg, last stand. Push this forward, probably clear out the top lane, make their reset, and start setting up for Baron again.
This time, no one here to defend it, so they're able to clear that one out. 6 towers to 3, 2 Infernal Drakes. There'll be another on the way, and they stop the Baron attempt of Rampage. Fenerbahce back in the driver's seat.
Yeah, but it's now the question of what Rampage are going to do with this window where 1907 are making the back. We will take another look at this team fight. Again, we talked about it. Thaldron, he doesn't get a lot of credit, but it's about how he sets up these team fights. Unfortunately, Baron takes him out. But got the nice Cataclysm.
I mean, he did the job. You know, sometimes when your team follows you all the way in, it doesn't matter if you die because you take a couple people down with you.
But
Rampage.
This is the window I was talking about. In the 1907 back, it meant that they lost control over the Baron pit. So Rampage see that they're trying to fix the waves, and they immediately pulled the trigger on the Baron.
Yeah, they got Baron fever for sure. Now Tussle looking to try and catch out onto Padden. He gets the kick back into Ramane, turns and burns, and they're going to be able to find him. Rampage taking out the carry right there, and even through the heal, they might have the chance to take the Baron this time.
But they still need to respect the fact that Crash is around as well as the Cassiopeia, so they're not 100% confident to go for this.
Yeah, but Thaldron's not there. However, he does have the teleport. Going to start it up right now, and looks like Rampage they're going to turn off. Looking for Frozen this time. Do they have the damage? No taunt.
Oh, so close to hitting that taunt there.
That would have been the difference maker, and now a little bit low. They don't feel like they can try and fight this one out. So 4 members of 1907 Fenerbahce are enough to deter this Rampage squad. They have to scatter away from the barrel.
And unfortunately, that was the window that Rampage had to try to exploit 1907 Fenerbahce not being in position. So losing that is pretty massive because now it's just going to go back into a tug of war over the vision, and 1907 will have the waves. You can see that Frozen's setting it up in the top lane. The bot wave has already been shoved up. Someone will need to respond and reset that, and it gives them all of the time to walk in, clear out all this vision, and try for another Baron setup.
Yeah, and in the meantime, there'll be another Infernal Drake in some minutes away, and With the control of the rivers on both sides, 1907 Fenerbahce looking to sit pretty. It's been a few hectic moments for this team, but they definitely seem to be controlling it. And unfortunately for Rampage, it's starting to look like they may not be able to walk away from this Worlds with a win.
It's not over yet, Pyra, because you do have the 2 completed items now on Kog'Maw. He's also got his Zeal, so he's looking for that 3rd one. There are still hope windows. You can see that this is where Rampage are comfortable. They said it multiple times. They're a slow, patient, methodical team. It's about their superstar ADC, getting him to that point where he can really take advantage of a fight, and he's still in perfect position to do that. You know, great CS. He's kept time with Tristana. He's already been devastating with 2 items. He's going to be even more so when he gets that Hurricane.
It's very true, Frostgren. Still, though, it's going to be really tough for this team to climb back, and we saw a little bit of that indecision. We saw them not being able to pull the trigger. Don't know if they would have gotten the Baron. However, for the time being, decided to sit in the mid lane, fire away at the minion waves. They still need to be able to knock that one down in the middle.
I mean, if it's not the Baron, it could also be the Infernal. Letting 3 Infernals go would absolutely be the last nail in the coffin for them.
Oh, that's a little bit rough for sure. Rampage is still pinging around, but of course you see 1907 Fenerbahce, they don't want to give the Baron away.
The situation that they're struggling with right now is the fact that Thaldrun doesn't have to teleport. Evie doesn't have his either, but he gets to be Shin, so he pretty much has it anyway with Stand United. And that's kind of the issue that Fenerbahce have run into, and why they can't just immediately rush towards the Baron that they were setting up. And with Infernal spawning so closely, I feel like they're just going to take this one slow. You know, let's wait for the teleport cooldown to come back up before we try to make the Baron play, unless Rampage just massively misposition themselves. And let's instead focus on this Infernal that's spawning in 1 minute 30 seconds. By the time we take that down, hopefully we'll have the teleport back up, and then we can try to set up this Baron properly.
Yeah, that's the controlled style. All right, so now you see the ward clearing out. 1907 Fenerbahce priming this Baron to see if they can maybe get a catch.
Teams taking the stage for this game, though, are the Chaos Latin Gamers versus Fnatic. For Fnatic, they'll need to maintain the dominance we saw from them versus KLG yesterday if they want to secure that #1 spot. Soaz with the Twisted Advance trying to dodge the shielded Durand, but there comes the taunt, and now Soaz is having to run up towards the top side. Here's the hero's entrance. Soaz so low, gets taken out. First blood, KLG. You open up the map so much more when you get that mid tower, allowing you to play around the Shen, play around the Galio, play around these globals. They're also trying to play around bots, getting knocked back. Here comes the TP by Soaz, but that's going to be a little bit too late here. Now, Fnatic decide to cancel the teleport and lose the Rift Herald, so it's a pure gain for Chaos Latin Gamers.
被嘲讽住了，甚也接一个嘲讽，双嘲讽 Rigorous 还有血量，风女在旁边开启了一个大招 ，Slow 在正面想先把 Rigorous 变形，但是发条了一个大招，逼出了前排2个闪现，但是后排这边嫂子进场已经先把残疾的九头给收掉，再一个 W 技能让 Rigorous 在后方收到 Slow。
They're trying to be the party upsetters. There's the Baron falling, Vix dead as well, and now KLG have to run for the hills. Blugo caught out the explosive charge doing up.
Of course, Dara just standing on the outside as well. Thaldrun still clearing in the bottom side. Full control for 1907 Fenerbahce, but Rampage, they're not too far behind, and we have a 3-item Kog'Maw to bear.
Yeah, the big AoE purchase in the Hurricane, so it's not just about the 3 items, it's about the fact that, you know, no one is safe now on the side, which means that Thaldrun, Crash, your job got that much harder, that much more important for these 5v5s. Find this Kog'Maw, get him out of position, and blow him up.
Now let's see if they can wheel the cannon in the right position, though, on the Rampage side. Still pushing waves back, making sure that 1907 Fenerbahce do not have too many chances to start pushing on to those base towers. However, still a strong presence in the mid lane. They've got to be able to try and contest this dragon. As you said, giving up a third could be fatal.
And it looks really slow right now that there's just a massive hiatus, but this is exactly what 1907 want. They've got Thaldrun out into a side lane, so they don't want to get caught out in a 5v5 because they know that the enemy top laner can be there and theirs cannot. So this patience, this is controlled patience.
Yeah, looks like Crash going to run straight into Ramane and Tussle. Safeguards back to his mid laner. Still throwing his weight around for sure. Crash didn't really take any damage at all.
But here's the Infernal.
Tussle. Here comes Evie. They've got a taunt off. It's onto Thaldrun. Does he tanky enough, though, to survive? Evie gets knocked back into the team. The power gets unleashed, but no one's gone down. A couple of key ultimates spent, not to mention a flash out of Thaldrun.
But the problem is that there's no vision down there. It's so dangerous for Rampage to step forward into this. They've got a single ward in front of the Dragon Pit, and it's going to be 3 uncontested Infernals in favor of 1907 Fenerbahce.
Oh man, that's looking to be disaster right now for Rampage. The gold might be even, but those dragons can spell all the difference. Now, Rampage, they're making a beeline for the Baron, but this is in full vision, and no one has backed on the Fenerbahce side.
And I've seen this play before, and Rampage just have never had the confidence to pull the trigger on it. So I think that they're trying to set up a trap, but unfortunately, because they haven't checked the Baron, they don't know that it's warded. And so 1907 Fenerbahce, with all of the information, just choose to call their a bluff and push up mid.
Yeah, might be able to take out some towers too if Rampage still stick around trying to set up this death brush, but Crash, he's just gonna find out that lone control ward. Padden and Japone still standing strong, and Crash gets caught on the stun. Tussle around the side looking to delete. Padden gets the kick off and interrupts the jump. That might just be enough to do it. 5-man, they're gonna turn for this one, but they're gonna have to fight for it with 3 Infernal Drakes. A 4v5 might not be out of the question for 1907 Fenerbahce.
Still need to respect the fact that Crash is still alive. You can see he's trying to debate, are we walking in the front, we going in the back?
Yeah, they're looking for Japone right now. Tussle right on the front line for the chase.
They could just go
a couple
top
members
lane.
looking for it. Yeah, Dara. Clear lands, chase off. Here's the Kog'Maw, wheeling in the cannon. Let's see if they can take it down.
I like this call. Don't even play with the Baron right now. Crash is still alive. You've got a huge wave and huge damage on the Kog'Maw. Take the free structure.
See what they can do with the man advantage. Still 15 seconds left on the Tristana. That's a massive mini wave. Pretty easy pickings. Try and get some gold back into their pockets, so Rampage will clear that away. Still pinging back for the Baron, though, is 1907.
Yeah, and it's a huge wave that someone needs to respond to. So, yes, Jarvan is taking care of it. He does have his teleport if he really needs to get here quickly, although he can just walk. But this is so much respect from Rampage.
Yeah.
They are so terrified of Crash.
Yeah, and terrified of Baron throws. I suppose it's healthy, but at the same time, they might have been able to pick up a couple of them.
This hasn't been a problem for any other team this entire play-ins.
Well, that's very true. Looks like 1907 Fenerbahce are making a play on the Baron. It's only with 3 members. Ramane's still sticking around, but he's in danger of getting caught up. Now Padden's joining the party. Here comes Tussle around the side. Let's see if they can stop this one. A lot of pings flying on all sides. Evi's not started to stop, and it's going to be Tussle who gets knocked up into the team. Still a lot of damage, but they got wild growth on, and it's going to be a big party barrel. Redemption is not going to land on Adara. Let's see if they can take out Frozen to start things off. There's a shutdown for Evi, and the Kog'Maw will find a kill onto Thaldrin. Rampage looking to finish this fight. Padden already jumped away, though, and will this finally be the time for Rampage to get the kill? Crash is caught out. If they can take down the Smite, that might just be enough. Crash moving back forward, and it looks like Tussle can't find the finisher.
Just turn on the Baron! Oh, please just take it.
There they go, starting it. All right, but Tussle's in danger. Has to safeguard back. They don't want to do it.
They're given so much respect. Now Padden is back into position, so this Tristana definitely is a problem. And Tussle is taking a lot of damage standing behind the monster.
Oh, you can say that again. Evi tried for the taunt, but it's not enough. They're inside the back of the Baron pit. Yutori Miyashi forced to flash away. Not in this fight. Evi's isolated for the team, and everything is going wrong. Padden gets Ramane looking for Evi. They turn back onto the Baron, and the aggro doesn't even reset.
Disaster. The indecisive means that 1907 Fenerbahce will get the Baron, but Tussle, the miracle still.
Let's see if he can do it. Sends the Sonic Wave just a smidgen too late. Down he goes. And 1907 Fenerbahce come up with everything. The kills, the Baron buff on all 5 members. All that's left is for them to push into the base.
This has been a 10-minute Baron dance, and ultimately it's Baron that does so much of the damage. Let's look at, take a look at how this team fight started. Now the big guy to look at on your screen is Hitori, because he goes pretty much untouched this entire time. So Rampage, they appeal back to their Kog'Maw. He starts to get confidence. He's pressuring forward, pushes them out, and this is where things look amazing. Now Yutori immediately turns toward the Baron. He's like, come on guys, let's get it into position. But the team just doesn't rotate quickly enough. Are we zoning them away? Are we on the Baron? Pick one, force Crash to come to you, and then this is the biggest mistake. Standing behind the Baron and just getting shredded by all of these spikes. Yutori's actually going to flash out of the back of the pit, and now all your damage is gone.
Yep, Ramane Tussle just kind of standing there waiting for the end of days, and that was all she wrote. Double kill to Tristana, insult to injury on top of it. We know the rest.
Yep, and Tussle will try to make Miracle Steal, doesn't get it. Crash secures the Baron and might secure the victory here for 1907 Fenerbahce. Triple Infernal, 35 minutes of the game with the Baron, and now sieging on bot inhib.
Yeah, that tower's getting cut through pretty quickly right now. A lot of crits coming out of that Tristana cannon. Down goes the first tower inside the base. Still pings flying. Rampage trying to mount a desperate defense. This is their last chance to try and get a victory, to bow out of Worlds with their heads held high.
At this point, they just want to get a good team fight. They've had flashes of brilliance, but unable to execute all the way through. Maybe feeling a little bit of their stage jitters so far, because again, it feels like they're just indecisive. Are we taking the Baron? Are we not taking the Baron? Are we looking for the flank? Are we steamrolling forward in this fight?
As you've mentioned so many times, the LGL, small league, small region, emerging, trying to prove that they have the chops to tangle with some of these larger regions. The TCL producing some serious contenders. even on the world stage. And once again, it looks like 1907 Fenerbahce might be joining those ranks pretty soon as Crash goes in, gets the knockback, and they're going to start the deletions. Yutaro Mayashi's already out of this fight, and so he goes. So goes the damage. The dominoes are falling, and they just keep on moving. The double kill for the Casio. They don't even need that inhibitor. Already got one down in the bottom. There goes the ace. 35 minutes on the clock, and it's all over. But the Cryan has 1907 Fenerbahce turn it back around, getting themselves one more win and going undefeated in their group.
Fenerbahce executing on what Rampage was just a bit gun-shy in doing, which was pulling the trigger on the Baron. As soon as they saw they had an advantage, they said, this purple worm is ours, secured it, and then immediately ended the game.
Just making themselves look even better, finding a third win on the board, and falls back in Hong Kong Attitude's court, I suppose.
And that's the thing, it was a must-win for 1907 Fenerbahce to keep toe with HKA. They want to come out first in the group. They had to win here, and now this group just got even spicier.
Yeah, there's going to be a few more very decisive games coming through, and shaking hands with the Rampage members, but unfortunately for these guys, not a whole lot left for them to do. But 1907 Fenerbahce, man, making an emergency sub, a lot of question marks raised. It doesn't look like there's been any trouble whatsoever. Crash has been coming up huge.
Yeah, and we've also seen the consistent performing Thaldrin as well as Frozen, so it makes Crash's job that much easier when he's already got two solid backbones in his solo lanes.
Right. Now, in the very beginning of the game, there were definitely some misplays, especially on Frozen's side, trying to get the kill with 2v1, looked very secure. Ramune coming up with a nice play to turn things around, and then Tussle getting in one more. All the same, like, when it counted, when push came to shove, Frozen was there.
Yeah, it's about making those, clutch decisions, knowing when to go for the Baron, knowing when to set up the team fight. It was still, complete 100% dragon control, 100%, pretty much a monster objective control. So yes, 1907 Fenerbahce, it wasn't the cleanest mid-game that it could have been, but statistically, they felt in control for the entire game.
And they managed it. So to get their thoughts on that game, let's send it over to our analysts.
Thank you very much, Pyra. Of course, interesting way that the game unfolded. We take a chance. We look a little bit at the composition shortly here. What I will say right off the bat is this is probably the best early game we have seen from Rampage so far. Unfortunately, from that point on, it did feel like everything started to fall apart.
I mean, it was a bit of a bold pick out of Frozen to take the Cassiopeia into Syndra. It's a little bit of a skilly matchup. A lot of people think it does favor the Syndra just a little bit, given that you have that long-range stun setup, and it did feel like it went bad pretty quickly just because of that, and Ramune was able to step up and have probably his best game of the tournament so far.
And you have that slight edge when you get the Abyssal Mask for yourself, but mostly, yeah, pretty difficult mid lane to start the game out with. But yeah, Rampage, when you look at the early game, it wasn't that bad. Most of it came from Fenerbahce mistakes, but ultimately their early game was good.
And some of that did come from some fantastic plays from Ramune. So as we take a look at this replay brought to you by Acer Predator, you can see just how dominant he was, and maybe some questionable choices coming in from Frozen.
I like the decision here to try and gank the Syndra. Crash tries to weigh out the flash, just misses the cast, and then Frozen makes the mistake of continuing to chase, tries to get that ultimate off, and it just puts him in range to go down. Now Crash is in a bad spot. He's going to get chased down by Tussle here as well. Nice kick flashback, and they're able to get the second kill of the skirmish.
Yeah, you could see that exact moment where they knew they had made a mistake. Unfortunately for the side of 1907 Fenerbahce, Frozen overstepping. But what we can say is the Shen ultimate timing was fantastic. This is that second kill where, once again, Frozen, you feel like the first one might have been a mistake. The second one, obvious signs of trying to outplay people that aren't trying to outplay him. And so he outplays himself.
Yeah, very difficult. And the thing I like that it wasn't just like, oh, they messed up, I got a kill, hooray, 300 gold for me. But they actually did a good job with Ramune, continuing to push the lead, got a CS advantage. They broke that turret in the mid lane with some extra resources. So you could see them playing around with their advantages.
And from there, it did feel like a very even game. But at a very specific point in time, everything went wrong. 33 minutes, we're going to take a look at the fight that happened around Baron. Fenerbahce, in the end, coming out on top, but a very turbulent exchange.
Right, they picked two. It's a 4v3, and you can get the Baron here, but it takes them forever to start this thing off. Tussle got chunked out really aggressively by Padden just before this, and then they all group up in the back of the pit, where Baron's DPS is the highest. It also hits multiple members, so they get chunked out very low. Yutaro has to flash the wall. Split call as Evie tries to go onto Padden. People are dying in the pit. is a disaster.
Yep, Ramone just died to the Baron. They're lucky the Lee Sin got out alive and very disconnected from the side of Rampage. And that wasn't even the Rift Herald play. That was the Baron play.
Yeah, the Rift Herald play, not so hot either. The thing that really disappointed me was Rampage had a lead. They made a mistake at the Rift Herald play. Fenerbahce didn't pick it up, but then they just felt like they never crossed mid-river almost the whole rest of the game until they finally got another pick-off onto a Patton, excuse me.
And the big thing that I noticed, too, is that when we saw Gambit kind of in a similar scenario, right, they took a very different approach. They went for some controversial picks. I think you could say they're having a little bit of fun with it. And they tried things. And in a game that, in the end, you're just trying to save face. You're just trying to show the world that you're a team that
you just want to be
wins.
You just want to be remembered. And Gambit went out there and they had fun. They remembered. People are going to remember that Baron play from Rampage. Not necessarily what you want to be remembered for, unfortunately.
But Fenerbahce now coming in 3-0 have secured themselves a spot in the elimination stage. Things look pretty good for them. But also, I feel like we've highlighted some new weaknesses as well.
Yeah, I think we can look at mid lane and say that is an outstanding weakness. When you look at their opponents, there's a world where mid lane can be a target. It's the individual mistakes that we're seeing from Frozen. Perhaps the fact that he's having to communicate with Crash so heavy-handed could ultimately be his downfall, but now we're seeing early laning phase and mechanical mistakes.
Right, he got ganked early on in the first match versus HKA, and it seems now after dying here versus Rampage that he has to be very careful going forward in this rematch because he might be getting targeted very aggressively in-game moving forward.
Do we think that this was just that confidence pick similar to the Caps that we saw, or the LeBlanc we saw from Caps yesterday? Do we think that on a more conventional pick he can be safer, or does he just need to kind of take a step back?
I would say it's mentality more than champion as well. Cassiopeia is a comfort pick, but so are a million other mid lane champions for every mid laner at this tournament. Just play more carefully.
All right, well now let's send it over to Fish, who's standing by for an interview with 1907 Fenerbahce's jungler.
Hey guys, I'm here with Crash, jungler for 1907 Fenerbahce, and you guys just picked up your third win of the play-ins group stage. I mean, how do you feel right now knowing that it's in your hands to make it into the next stage of groups?
네, 방금 전에 경기를 마치면서 이제 그룹 스테이지에서 플레인 그룹 스테이지에서 세 번째 승리를 거머쥐게 됐습니다. 그럼 이제 제 2라운드 진출이 확정이 됐는데요. 지금 기분이 어떠십니까?
아직 다음 경기가 남아 있잖아요. 다음 경기가 우리 목표가 1위가 됐어요. 일단 1위를 하는 게 목표니까 아직 기쁘긴 이르네요.
Well, we still have a final match with Hong Kong Attitude, and we have actually changed our goal to becoming the first seed in this group. So it's still too early for us to be happy.
Well, that's great to hear. Good luck on your match later on against Hong Kong Attitude. I kind of want to talk about how you came into the team because you were a last-minute emergency substitute. You only had a few days to work with the team before coming to the World Championship. What has that been like, coming into the World Championship with so little time to prepare?
네, 그렇다면 행운을 빌어드리겠습니다. 그리고 이제 지금 저희 경기하기 직전에 바로 대체 선수로 마지막 순간에 합류를 하게 됐는데요. 그렇다면 며칠 정도밖에 연습할 시간도 없었고 지금 이 상황에서 어떻게 대체를 하고 계십니까?
일단 제가 팀원들을 맞춰주는 식으로 하고, 그러니까 팀원들이 저를 맞춰주는 것보다 제가 팀원들을 맞춰주는 게 쉬울 것 같아가지고 제가 팀원들한테 맞춰주는 식으로 하고 있어요.
Well, I figured that it will be easier for me to follow their style than asking them to follow my style. So that's what I'm doing now.
Which is great to hear because Stoljin had a few things to say about how they were trying to adapt to your style as well. So it's good to hear that you're doing the same. Finally, just want to ask, what is communication like in the team? Because I know you're a mixture of both Turkish as well as Korean players. How do you guys communicate going into game? How do you guys practice together, so to speak?
네, 저도 안 그래도 그 부분이 궁금했는데요. 그 답변 감사합니다. 그렇다면 이번에 팀 내 의사소통에 관한 질문인데요. 지금 한국 선수와 터키 선수들이 섞여 있습니다. 서로 의사소통은 어떻게 하고 있고 연습은 어떻게 하고 있나요?
일단 제가 기본적인 영어밖에 못 쓰거든요. 네, 그 기본적인 영어로 탑 친구가 영어를 굉장히 잘하니까 탑이랑 그 테일이 형이 같이 제가 말하는 걸 못 알아듣는 거를 통역해 주는 식으로 하고 있어요.
Well, actually, I speak very little English, but our Thaldrin speaks very good English as well as Frozen. So they're helping me to talk to other players. They're helping me translate my Korean into English.
Well, that's great to hear. Best of luck in your final match against Hong Kong Attitude. We're going to go to a very quick break. We'll be back with more Worlds 2017 action up next.
Dodged by Ramone, and it's first blood on the 1v2!
Rampage are making it very clear that the mid lane is what they want.
All right, Scout of the Week, the Unleashed Powers on top of Frozen. They push him back. Oh my goodness!
Japone gets the steal out. On the end, they can't quite pick up the Eye of the Rift Herald, so Rampage decide they want to take the 5v5 fight right to him, but they're getting a little bopped around. Tussle around the side looking to delete. Padden gets a kick off and interrupts the jump. That might just be enough to do it, and everything is going wrong. Padden gets Ramune looking for Evie. They turn back onto the Baron, and the aggro doesn't even reset. Yutari Mayashi's already out of this fight, and so he goes. So goes the damage. The dominoes are falling, and they just keep on moving. The double kill for the Casio. It's all over, but the Cryan has 1907 Fenerbahce turn it back around.
A lot of work. He's going to get taken down eventually by Fnatic, and Fnatic will get 5 kills and secure themselves the Baron.
And Cap's gonna get shielded.
Mantaraya not quite able to make the big play he wanted to there. He goes down as well. Do I Void Rush? Do I Void Rush? Not quite, but Soaz is going to jump into the backline here. Comes the Hero's entrance to knock up onto Mantaraya, but the root actually cancels the Galio coming into that fight. Redemption for Fnatic as they try and take down KLG in the base. 26 minutes in. Fnatic are not done with this fight yet, but perhaps Reckless is done as he gets knocked in. The Stand United comes out to keep Fix alive, and KLG are now the ones on the back foot as Fnatic continue to pound down, to continue to step forward and say, KLG will take you on in your base. Cap splashes in, Vix goes down, and there's the double knockup onto Mantaraya as well. He is going to go down to Pound Town as Fnatic continue to clean up kill after kill after kill in the base of KLG. Fnatic are going to secure the top spot in their group. Group C belongs to FNC 3-0.